Chapter 806. On the other side, the Sky Light Alliance, a friendship organization formed by 17 sky-level sects, also received a reply from Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had tactfully declined the Alliance's invitation. It could be said that the members of the Alliance had completely expected this outcome. How could a sect whose initial level had been directly set at Sky Level 3rd class take them seriously? The sect's foundation alone was already on a completely different level. If the General Office of Strategic Deception was allowed to continue to develop, it would be a real hidden danger. Everyone knew how capable Great Death-courting Senior Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was as the sect leader of a sect. Of all the forums and websites in the country, only the Cultivation Forum that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal ran was able to gradually turn a profit every year and maximize its economic efficiency. Even without the joint investment of these companies, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal alone had the ability to establish a sect. Now that they had received this investment, the General Office of Strategic Deception was like a tiger that had grown wings. Lu Yuming stared at Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's reply and was lost in deep thought. Without knowing which sect the other party was a direct descendant of, it was impossible for them to rashly suppress the other party. Furthermore, judging from his reply, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's words were quite tactful, which indirectly proved that while the other party hadn't joined the Alliance, he didn't want to become enemies with the Alliance. As the president of the Alliance, once Lu Yuming decided to exclude the other party, it would be the same as rejecting good intentions and declaring war. This was the most troublesome part of the whole matter. On one hand, the Alliance wanted to curb the power of Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's new sect and prevent it from developing too quickly, giving the other old sect some breathing room. On the other hand, the Alliance couldn't take the initiative to stir up trouble, which would put the Alliance in danger if they didn't know the ins and outs. In recent years, the three great sky-level sects, Immortal Palm Tree Sect, Fighting Horse Sect and Myriad Beast Sect, which hadn't joined the Alliance, were already dissatisfied with the establishment of the Alliance. If they took advantage of this opportunity to join forces with Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's new sect, the Office of Strategic Deception, and incite the other sky-level sects that weren't even 5th class, the Alliance was bound to fall into a situation where it would be difficult to recover. What kind of situation would that be? The countryside surrounding the city. What a wise and mighty great man's strategy. And now, the reason why the Immortal Palm Tree Sect and the others had yet to make a move was largely because they didn't want to take the initiative to cause trouble and stir up trouble. When a sect reached the pinnacle, the sect would often pay more attention to prestige and reputation. The party that initiated trouble would often become the subject of ridicule. Some of the sect leaders present were unhappy. Are we really helpless against this Office of Strategic Deception? There's no other way for now. Lu Yuming shook his head. We can't just attack without knowing the details. I don't think so. At this time, a sect master waved his hand. This sect master was called Sun Hanja, and the Radish King sect he founded specialized in researching all kinds of demon insects and spirit insects. In recent years, the market for dried insects as medicine had been quite good, and the Radish King sect had used this opportunity to rise to become a 5th-rank sky sect a few years ago and join the Alliance. What is Sect Master Sun's opinion? Lu Yuming remembered that just yesterday, this Sect Master's son was still of the conservative faction. What he advocated was the idea of cowering down and observing first. But today, he had suddenly changed his attitude. It was very obvious that this Sect Master's son had received some expert's guidance. This Sect Master's son smiled smugly. Yesterday, a senior suddenly contacted my sect and expressed his willingness to lend our Alliance a helping hand in probing the ins and outs of this Office of Strategic Deception. Since he wants to lend the Alliance a helping hand, why did he contact you? Shouldn't he contact President Lu directly? Someone asked. Don't worry, brothers, listen to me slowly. Sect Master Sun waved his hand without a care in the world. It's like this senior's method of communication is a little special. The other party directly possessed the body of a flying mantis spirit insect that my sect raises and talked to me. At the time, I was inspecting the situation at the breeding farm. Entered the body of an insect? That's right. Sect leader's son nodded his head. I think this should be the senior's way of concealing his true identity, so he used this level of magic. He pretended to use an insect to convey his opinion, and told me to explain the purpose of his visit to the president at today's meeting. Pretended to use an insect? Hearing this, President Liu narrowed his eyes. To be elected president of the alliance, President Liu naturally wasn't an ordinary person. His vision, knowledge and connections were much more profound than most of the people present. Otherwise, even if he became president, he wouldn't be able to convince the masses. President, do you have any idea? Someone asked hurriedly when he saw President Liu's expression. It's the soul insect spell. Liu Yuming quickly replied. This soul insect spell is one of the secret techniques of the Dragon Clan, which was famous for its insect mastery back then. But according to historical records, the Dragon Clan was exterminated because they offended their enemies, and the entire clan ceased to exist. When clan leader Long Jiangnan of the Dragon Clan was captured, he was still writing a novel based on the deeds of the Dragon Clan. When Liu Yuming said this, many of the sect leaders present suddenly realized what was going on. The eyes of an old man with grizzled hair and beard lit up. I remember this. I attended an auction many years ago, and the original Dragon Clan novel written by clan leader Long Jiangnan was sold for hundreds of millions of yuan. Rumor has it that the secret of the soul insect spell was recorded in it. Liu Yuming said, there's always been a saying in the circle that the reason the Dragon Clan was exterminated back then was because Long Jiangnan was too slow in updating his novels. It was precisely because Long Jiangnan, the leader of the Dragon Clan, was too slow in updating his novels that he was denounced by all sorts of bigwigs and readers. However, there was no proof of this until now. Now that the soul insect spell has resurfaced, it's very likely that this senior's identity is related to the Dragon Clan. Liu Yuming pondered this carefully, then stared at Sun Hanja, the sect leader of Radish King's sect, and said, "What is this senior's condition?" "This senior's condition is very simple," sect leader's son replied. "As long as we secretly set up the transmission crystal prepared by this senior on the day of the Office of Strategic Deception's founding conference, we can leave everything else to this senior. Apart from that, this senior also hopes that our alliance can take action and suppress a school." "Which university is it?" "It's not a university, it's a high school." High school? But there are only foundation establishment students there? President Liu should have heard of number 60 high school, which has been on the news a lot recently, right? "I have." That senior said that bullying foundation establishment students is his hobby. Chapter 807. This was a request for cooperation from a suspected descendant of the Dragon Clan. In fact, there wasn't any risk involved in this request, they just had to bring in the transmission crystals that they had prepared beforehand and set them up. For these sky-level sect leaders, this was a piece of cake. The most important thing was that they didn't have to do anything themselves, which also avoided a direct conflict with the Office of Strategic Deception. Liu Yuming had always been a conservative, which was one of the reasons why he had advocated the establishment of the Sky Light Alliance in the first place. It was true that such an act would attract criticism, but at the very least, it would allow Liu Yuming's own sect to stand on the same front with the other sects that were willing to join the alliance and reach an agreement to cooperate. Perhaps there would be many obstacles in the future when a sect was promoted, but as long as the alliance existed, the sect's rank would not drop. The alliance was a line of defense formed by 17 sky-level sects, and could be said to be an impenetrable fortress. Most of the sects in the alliance were at 5th class, and a few were at 4th class, but their overall strength kept each other in check. As long as they were in the alliance, no sect would drop below 5th class so easily. If they wanted to become a 5th class sect, they had to pass the alliance. Liu Yuming had planned this out very well all along, but he never expected the Office of Strategic Deception to suddenly pop up at this time. After sect leader's son gave his opinion, Liu Yuming pondered it for a long time. After a while, Liu Yuming nodded. "Sect leader's son, please tell him that our alliance can only promise to put some pressure on that high school, but won't kill it in one fell swoop. After all, we have no enmity with that high school. If we go too far, we'll bring trouble upon ourselves. If that senior has no objections, I'll agree." Sun Hanja nodded. Very well. Liu Yuming's decision was within everyone's expectations. This chairman was a conservative person, and he was never one to go to the extreme. Another big reason why Lu Yuming was suffering so much was that he didn't know the true background of this senior, who was suspected to be a descendant of the Dragon clan. Since the other party was able to find Sun Hanja to convey his opinion on his behalf, he had to have done some research on the alliance itself. However, there were a total of 17 Sky-class sects in the alliance. To be able to so easily figure out the alliance's current difficulties and grasp the core of the conflict, the other party was clearly not a simple person. Lu Yuming's intuition told him. This senior descendant of the Dragon clan might not be the key. Behind the scenes, there was probably an even more powerful person manipulating everything. August 8th, Tuesday in the 16th week of the semester. The Heavenly Almanac wrote, do, start a business, establish a clan, get married, go out, pet cats, apply for a job, confess, delay updates, cast monthly votes, cast recommendation votes, avoid. Nungranad throwing senior immortal had thus decided on this day early on. This was a rare good day this year, and if he missed it, he would have to wait 6 years. Grenade throwing senior immortal had been making all kinds of plans for the Office of Strategic Deception since the day he had started the cultivation forum. Now that it could finally be realized, he was very excited. On this day, the Office of Strategic Deception was finally established 80 li away from the Wang family's small villa on East Huang Road. This was a sect built on a mountain and surrounded by mountains on all sides. The entire Office of Strategic Deception was like a dazzling jewel embedded in the mountains. In order to carry out the sect founding ceremony smoothly this time, grenade-throwing senior immortal had specially hired a lot of sect guides. It only took them 1 day to complete their training. Each guide was the cream of the crop as they were university graduates from famous schools. Many of the sect bigwigs who had arrived at the appointed location with invitations were dumbfounded, because the person who received them was a very young and handsome cultivator. This was the youngest professor at Beiyan First Cultivation University in Beiyan City, Yang Bingchuan. Last year, Professor Yang had even won the National Cultivation Gardener Award. Many people still remembered him vividly. But this famous void refinement bigwig professor had actually come here to be a tour guide? After all, Professor Yang was almost an itinerant immortal. Welcome to the founding ceremony of the General Office of Strategic Deception, also known as the Office of Strategic Deception for short. Professor Yang smiled slightly. I'm Yang Bingchuan, leader of the Office of Strategic Deception's patrol team. Perhaps you have many friends who know me? Professor Yang, why are you here? Lu Yuming shivered at Yang Bingchuan's appearance. Grenade-throwing senior immortal is a good friend of mine. His new sect is trying to invite me to be a guest official, and he even offered me a high salary that I couldn't refuse. Naturally, I wasn't in a position to refuse. Furthermore, I'm the team leader, so I can leave a lot of things to my subordinates. Although Beiyan City is indeed a little far from Songhai, it actually doesn't affect my teaching in Beiyan. I see, Lu Yuming and the other sect leaders nodded. Even so, this was already quite an exaggeration. Because they hadn't known that Professor Yang Bingchuan was on the list of names they had received before. That was to say, they might see other bigwigs at today's sect founding ceremony? Professor Yang was all smiles as he said, all of you are sect leaders of large sects, so the sect leaders have specially instructed me to receive you. Now, please follow me on the Office of Strategic Deception's exclusive sightseeing bus. Sightseeing bus. Aren't we already at the sect? This is just a sect relay station. Because the Office of Strategic Deception occupies too much land, you've only arrived at one of the relay stations mentioned in the invitation letter. There are a total of 1,600 relay stations on the periphery of the Office of Strategic Deception's territory, said Professor Yang, leader of the patrol team. May I ask, what is the size of the Office of Strategic Deception's territory? Lu Yuming swallowed. 5,000 square kilometers. Although they were already mentally prepared, when they heard Professor Yang say it with their own ears, the sect leaders' jaws dropped. 5,000 square kilometers was comparable to a district in a second-tier city in Huaxiu Nation. This was the size of the Office of Strategic Deception's current territory, and it could almost be said to be unprecedented. In fact, the initial plan for the sect's territory was 100 square kilometers, but after Huaxiao Alliance got involved, the sect approval department directly revised the land plan to increase it to this much. Grenade-throwing senior immortal didn't find out about this until later. Maybe they could open a few more broccoli farms? This was what grenade-throwing senior immortal thought when he saw the sect approval document. But the truth was that the Office of Strategic Deception had only just been established, and didn't need so much land. Currently, the Office of Strategic Deception's core area was just the area around the mountain, which was about 20 square kilometers. Even so, the Office of Strategic Deception's rise had already frightened a lot of sky-level sect bigwigs. Chapter 808. It was an intense chill that came from the marrow of their bones. It was so cold that chills ran down their spines, and they felt like they had fallen into an ice cave. Almost all the sky-level sect leaders present could feel this feeling. The 17 sky-level sect leaders of the Alliance had come together this time, and their average strength was around the void refinement stage. So when they saw Professor Yang Bingxuan, who was also at the late void refinement stage and only half a step away from becoming an itinerant immortal, actually standing in front of them as a sect leader, these sky-level sect leaders didn't feel very good. They were grand sky-level sect leaders, but at best, they were just assistants in the Office of Strategic Deception. Many of the sky-level sect leaders were unhappy with this strong sense of disparity. Although Lu Yuming was already considering whether to give up on this cooperation, when he turned on his phone, he found that the group chat was very lively. Sun Hanja, the sect leader of Radish King's sect, was the first to express his dissatisfaction in the group. As a new sect, this Office of Strategic Deception doesn't care about us veteran sects at all. This is a blatant provocation. Everyone. We must carry out this operation. At the very least, we have to test this Office of Strategic Deception's strength. I agree. Very quickly, the sect leaders of the other sects chimed in. This matter is actually not a loss to us. Each sect only has one opening ceremony. If things get ugly, I'd like to see how that great death-courting senior will deal with it. Thus, while Lu Yuming was still considering whether to continue, the group was already in a frenzy. Lu Yuming stared at his phone screen in a daze. At this point, it was clearly too late for regret. In the observation car, Professor Yang noticed Lu Yuming's expression and smiled slightly. Sect leader Lu, you don't look too good. Did you not sleep well last night? Ha ha ha. Maybe I got a chest ache when I was regulating my breathing last night. President Lu casually made up an excuse to look as natural as possible. In fact, the actions of Lu Yuming and the others were all under the Office of Strategic Deception's control. The Office of Strategic Deception's current organizational structure was more complete than any sect could imagine. In addition to the core 7 major organizations, namely the Supervisory Team, Logistics Team, Spirit Medicine Team, Magic Treasure Team, Spirit Beast Team, Goon Team and Leisure Team, there were also many secret sect organizations that weren't displayed on the official website. This was because the official website of the Light Faction only required at least 6 or more core organizations to be listed. Grenade-throwing senior immortal had only written a brief introduction and overview of the 7 major organizations, but a lot of people thought that this was already the entire Office of Strategic Deception, which in fact wasn't the case. Other than the 7 core organizations mentioned above, there was also the Patrol Team, the Intelligence Team, the Scientific Research Team, the Express Delivery Team, and the Film and Television Team. There were all kinds of organizations that were not included. The Office of Strategic Deception was a giant sect that encompassed all the businesses of today's sects, and its future development was naturally aimed at becoming a sky-level first-class sect. This was Grenade-throwing senior immortal's blueprint for the Empire's sects, which he had been thinking about for a long time. Without official support, it would have been impossible for such a long-cherished wish to materialize. This was also the reason why Professor Yang had agreed to become a visiting official and a team leader of the Office of Strategic Deception. So a lot of the time, as long as you thought about it carefully, you would be able to turn things around. Lu Yuming had thought a lot, so the moment he saw Yang Bingxuan, he already knew that things were bad. But the current situation was already beyond his control. As for the information that Lu Yuming and the others were about to launch an operation, it was naturally the Office of Strategic Deception's intelligence team that had found out. Because not long ago, grenade-throwing senior immortal had cooperated with AMI to secretly launch an attack on MO Immortal Castle, Songhai City's underground intelligence organization. The entire MO Immortal Castle was now under the Office of Strategic Deception's control. 9/10 of MO Immortal Castle's assets would be confiscated by Huaxiao Alliance, while the remaining 1/10 would be brought into the Office of Strategic Deception as the initial fund for a subsidiary organization. The Lord and Lady of the castle had no other choice, because AMI had come with the 10 general signatures. If they resisted to the death, they would only be completely wiped out and sent to prison to play mahjong. Currently, Qin Lang was in charge of the intelligence team. After Devil King woke up from the game, he had planned to travel around. Qin Lang's method of probing with void tree roots had laid a good foundation for the intelligence department. Given the Lord and Lady's performance in the intelligence team, with Qin Lang overseeing things, they naturally didn't dare act rashly. What sect leader Lu is seeing in the tour bus is just the tip of the iceberg for the Office of Strategic Deception, Professor Yang said gently. Lu Yuming nodded. The Office of Strategic Deception's scale is truly unprecedented. I admire it. This was a reminder. As a veteran, Lu Yuming could naturally tell. But Professor Yang didn't directly expose Lu Yuming's operation this time. Because the current Office of Strategic Deception actually wasn't afraid of stirring up trouble at all, as the tour bus passed by a vast shed, Professor Yang looked out the window and said unhurriedly, "What you're seeing now is our Office of Strategic Deception's Heavenly Dao Broccoli Farm No. 1. Farm No. 1 is currently the largest in all of Huaxiao Nation. From now on, the Heavenly Dao broccoli produced by our sect will be sold as a product in supermarkets and food markets, and will be marked with the Office of Strategic Deception's anti-counterfeiting logo." What's so different about Heavenly Dao broccoli? A lot of sect leaders felt like they were going to choke. Research has shown that the Heavenly Dao broccoli produced by our sect can improve the accumulation of toxins below the soul formation stage. To put it simply, it moistens the intestines and relaxes the bowels. Furthermore, long-term consumption has the effect of prolonging life. Our sect leader, grenade-throwing senior immortal, chief of the Office of Strategic Deception, will personally eat our Heavenly Dao broccoli at the opening ceremony, said Professor Yang. Speaking up to this point, someone laughed coldly. I thought it had some effect. If eating this broccoli can help you comprehend Heavenly Dao, that's more like it. That depends on how you eat it. Perhaps you really can comprehend Heavenly Dao. Professor Yang smiled in response. Zhang Xiaohua, our nation's famous botanist and author of the authoritative book History's First Chaos, has already joined the Office of Strategic Deception as the leader of the Spirit Plants Department. Hearing this, the expressions of the sect leaders froze. Even Zhang Xiaohua had joined. Professor Zhang said that there is indeed a very low probability that you can sense Heavenly Dao after eating Heavenly Dao broccoli. That's why we call it Heavenly Dao broccoli. There are so many fake advertisements nowadays, but our Office of Strategic Deception only plays with reality. Chapter 809. The sightseeing bus traveled for a very long time before it reached the Office of Strategic Deception's Northern Square. This square was where all the Office of Strategic Deception's disciples practiced in the morning, and it was so big that it made one's hair stand on end. The most important thing was that the Office of Strategic Deception had 3 other squares like this one. Lu Yuming and many other sect leaders were dealt a blow one after another. As expected, this was a blatant show of wealth, right? A person's jealousy was truly a very scary thing. Even void refinement stage sect leaders were no exception to this. Cultivators could dispel toxins and impurities from their bodies and purify their souls through cultivation, but they couldn't completely extinguish their 7 emotions and 6 desires. In some sense, people who could completely abandon their 7 emotions and 6 desires had already lost their souls as human beings. When Professor Yang led the group of Alliance sect leaders to the Northern Square, he looked at the time and said, "There's still half an hour before the opening ceremony, and the rest are still on their way. Given that you are our Office of Strategic Deception's distinguished guests, the sightseeing bus took the green lane just now. The wooden huts on the edge of the square are guest tea houses, and there are drinks and pastries inside. Please help yourselves." "Very well, thank you, Professor Yang." Lu Yuming nodded. Actually, while Professor Yang was speaking, he had already noticed that a few of the 17 sect leaders seemed to have disappeared. They had probably gone to carry out their plan. But Professor Yang didn't act rashly and alert the enemy, and didn't even ask too many questions. He just turned a blind eye. And it was precisely this behavior that made Lu Yuming feel very uneasy. Because everything had been going too smoothly. Furthermore, on the way here, Lu Yuming had felt that there was something wrong with this Professor Yang's expression, as if he had already learned about their operation. In the guest tea house on the edge of the northern square, Lu Yuming was fidgeting uneasily as he stared out the window. At that moment, there was a new message in the alliance group. Everything was ready. Sect leader Sun had already led the other 4 sect leaders to the location designated by the Dragon Descendant Senior. Sun Hanja, President Lu, we've finished setting up the teleportation crystal. This teleportation crystal looks like it's used for summoning. I wonder what the Dragon Clan Senior is going to summon. A few sect leaders were analyzing in the group. Even through the screen, Lu Yuming could feel the excitement on their faces. The few of you, come back quickly. Lu Yuming did not say anything else. The location of the teleportation crystal was actually not far from the northern square. Is Guild Leader Lu afraid? Sun Hanja smiled and said, Don't worry, Lord President. The few of us have used invisibility talismans. The other side can't see us at all. When I was setting up the crystals just now, there were a few disciples who I suspected were from the Office of Strategic Deception who passed by me without noticing me. Lu Yuming sighed and typed quickly, Everyone, remember, this is something that we agreed to in the beginning because it was something that we could do in passing. There was almost no risk to it. But even so, everyone, you must play it safe. Being too reckless will not end well. Ha ha ha. President is too cautious. We'll be back soon. Sect leader Sun said. It was obvious that this sect leader's son was completely unaware of how dangerous this matter was. While President Lu was waiting in the tea house, Professor Yang walked into the tea house with a brocade pouch and a smile on his face. Sect leader Lu, I forgot to give you something just now. Lu Yuming, what is this brocade pouch? Professor Yang, all the distinguished guests who came to our sect this time were given gifts. There are 17 pieces of jade in this brocade pouch. Sect leader Lu can distribute them later. Lu Yuming's forehead was still beaded with sweat. Yang Bingchuan's sudden entrance earlier had given him a big fright. Thank you very much, Professor Yang, but these pieces of jade shouldn't be as simple as decorations, right? Of course. Professor Yang nodded. Wearing these pieces of jade has a certain condensing effect on spirit chi, and there's a small spirit gathering array embedded in them. In addition, these pieces of jade are also our Office of Strategic Deception's VIP nameplates. Our sect's defensive barrier was activated 10 minutes ago, but as long as you carry this piece of jade with you, you can release some of the restrictions placed on the sect leaders. Restrictions? Basically, all large sects have a defensive barrier, right? After entering the sect's defensive barrier, there are restrictions on flying, the use of spells and so on. Doesn't sect leader Lu's sect have one? Of course it does. Lu Yuming sweated. He had been observing every movement around him from the tea house just now, but hadn't noticed the Office of Strategic Deception's defensive barrier at all. How brilliant was the person who had set up the array? To actually be able to pull the wool over everyone's eyes without making any noise at all? President Lu vaguely sensed that something was wrong. Just as he was about to send a text message to sect leader Sun and the others to hurry back, Professor Yang said, Sect leader Lu, please take the trouble to distribute the jade as soon as possible. The defensive barrier has already been activated. If you don't wear a piece of jade, not only will you be restricted from flying and using spells, even the talismans you carry on you won't be effective. Lu Yuming, on the other side, on a hill not far from the northern square, sect leader Sun wasn't in a hurry to leave after leading the other 4 sect leaders to finish setting up the crystals. It had only taken them 5 minutes to set up the crystals, and there were now 25 minutes left until the opening ceremony. When they had passed by, the sect leaders had noticed a natural hot spring halfway up the hill, which was now under the jurisdiction of the Office of Strategic Deception's hot spring team. This Office of Strategic Deception really has a lot of business. The other sect leaders who had come along were extremely jealous. Because there were more than 50 natural hot springs like this in the Office of Strategic Deception's territory. With all kinds of industrial chains and rich and varied resources to expand the sect, the Office of Strategic Deception encompassed almost all the business of today's sects, and could simply be called a sect in heaven. Who wouldn't want to come to a sect like this? After setting up the crystals, sect leader's son received an urgent message from President Liu, telling him to hurry back. Standing at the mouth of a cliff, the wind blew as he looked down at the magnificent Office of Strategic Deception below, feeling indignant. He wanted to see how long this Office of Strategic Deception could be so smug. President Liu is urging us to go back. To be on the safe side, let's take a shortcut, sect leader's son said after taking a deep breath. All right. The other sect leaders nodded their heads. Then, who's first? Asked sect leader Sunday. They were all void refinement cultivators, so they planned to directly jump down from here. How about we do it together? All right. Sect leader's son nodded. Then, the few of them leaped. They had all used invisibility talismans, and thought that no one would see them jumping off the cliff. But they had no idea that the sect's defensive barrier had already been activated. Thus, as their bodies fell, the few of them realized that something was amiss, because at the bottom of the cliff, they actually discovered a group of reporters holding up all kinds of filming equipment. Chapter 8:10. As a spatial tempering stage powerful being, he would naturally be fine after jumping off a cliff. At most, he would land in a slightly unsightly position. After all, humans were not cats. There was no Schrödinger's cat theory, and he would always land feet first. Therefore, at this time, the invisibility talisman on them played a big role. As long as no one saw them, even if they fell badly, it wouldn't be too embarrassing. But the problem was, this group of reporters that had suddenly gathered below had caused sect leader's son and the others' faces to turn pale with fright. At their level, the thing they feared the most was reporters. Moreover, a small number of reporters often wrote articles that were taken out of context in order to attract attention. Now that they had jumped off the cliff of someone else's new sect, what kind of report would this group of reporters write? Shock. The leaders of the 5 sects agreed to bungee jump at the top of the mountain during the establishment ceremony of their new sects. The sect leader of Radish King's sect led the sect leaders of the 4 major sects to celebrate the Office of Strategic Deception's opening by performing a leap of faith on all fours. The moment he saw the reporter, sect leader's son's mind was already filled with many news headlines. The noise of them jumping off the cliff quickly attracted the attention of the group of reporters who were about to go to the North Square. Everyone, look! Someone jumped off the cliff. Lighting engineer. Cameraman. What about the equipment? This was news. Grab the headlines. Who is jumping off the cliff? The one at the very front seems to be the head of the Radish King's sect, Sun Hanja. Ka. In just an instant, the flashes below started flashing crazily. Sun. Sect leader Sun. What's going on? The few sect leaders behind sect leader's son were dumbfounded. They had obviously used the invisibility talisman. But for some reason, it actually failed at this time. What's more, it failed in front of a group of reporters, and the most important thing was that this group of damn reporters ran very fast. All of them raised their camera equipment up high and activated their body movements as they sprinted over. There were even 2 cameramen among them who knew zero-wave subtle steps. At this moment, sect leader's son finally realized that they might have been tricked. But if the Office of Strategic Deception had deliberately arranged this, they couldn't find any evidence. Because this group of reporters originally wanted to go to the North Square, they just happened to choose this path. Previously, Professor Yang had also specifically said that because of the different levels of guests, the paths they took were also different. They took the VIP green passageway, while this group of reporters might take the special passageway for reporters and the media. So, in the end, it could be said to be a coincidence. They could only admit defeat. Sect Master Sun gritted his teeth and circulated his spirit energy with all his might, intending to control the flow of air to fly. But unfortunately, he found that the spiritual power was actually flowing on his fingertips bit by bit, unable to condense at all. The others were also facing the same situation. The sex barrier. Sect head's son immediately thought that this might be the effect of the sex barrier. The invisibility talisman's failure was most likely due to the sex barrier. However, it was clear that sect leader's son had never imagined that this sect barrier would be so powerful. Even void-tempering stage powerhouses like them would be suppressed to the point where they couldn't use their spirit energy. Thus, sect leader's son, who was constantly falling, could only let out a long sigh. Everyone, don't panic. I'll handle the reporters. Then what should we do now? A few of the sect leaders wanted to cry. Now, everyone can think about how to make your landing posture look better. At the same time, in the tea house, sect leader Lu, who was fidgeting uneasily, had clearly sensed that something was wrong. Sect leader's son's speed of return was a little too slow. Even if the defensive barrier was activated and they couldn't circulate their spirit energy normally, they were void-tempering stage powerhouses. Even if they ran, their speed shouldn't be too slow. Logically speaking, they should have returned long ago. But now, there was no movement at all. Sect leader Lu, you don't look very good? Professor Yang asked deliberately with a smile. I was just wondering why old son and the others haven't returned yet. Sect leader Lu smiled awkwardly, then casually lied. They told me earlier that they went to pee. Pee in groups? But holding hands to go to the toilet, isn't that a habit of little girls? Yes. This is their hobby. I told you, this group of people has always been gay. But there is a toilet in the tea house. They like to be close to nature. At that moment, Professor Yang looked at his phone as if he had received a message. Sect leader Lu, sect leader's son and the others might be a little late. I just received news that a group of reporters are interviewing them. Reporters, that's right, for the sect's founding ceremony this time. Sect leader has specially invited all the major media outlets. People's Cultivation Evening News, People's Morning News, and Huaxiao Cultivation Daily are all here. Hearing this, sect leader Lu broke out in a cold sweat. If they were caught by this group of reporters, how bad would the situation be? Professor Yang, could you give us some face and have these reporter friends leave first? Our alliance will thank them generously in the future. Sect leader Lu had already realized the seriousness of this matter, because sect leader's son and the others represented the alliance, and what the alliance valued the most was naturally prestige. The reason the alliance had been able to stand tall all these years was because of this reputation and the harmonious atmosphere it had created. If it was disrupted today, the sects of the alliance would be at odds with each other. In the future, it would be hard to say. What frightened sect leader Lu even more was the degree of coincidence in this matter. If the Office of Strategic Deception had deliberately planned this from beginning to end, the other party's strategic awareness was too profound. It was just a seemingly casual move, but it had thrown them into disarray and hit their vitals. Professor Yang pinched his mustache and chuckled. This is our sect's matter. Since sect leader Lu and the alliance are important VIPs of our sect, we will naturally take care of this matter. But I also hope that sect leader Lu will remember what you said. Of course. Sect leader Lu bowed. While the two of them were talking, a huge black shadow came down from the sky, covering the entire northern square and the tea house. Alarmed, the sect leaders of the major sects in the tea house came out to watch, and saw a giant immortal warship with the seal of the Office of Strategic Deception anchored in the sky. Chapter 8:11. Hundreds of soul formation cultivators. What kind of lineup was this? All the sect leaders were stupefied. It was already quite extravagant to invite several soul formation cultivators to be the commander of the Guard of Honor for a regular sect founding ceremony. Not only were they expensive to hire, the most important thing was that they were extremely difficult to hire. But the Office of Strategic Deception had actually gathered such a large group of soul formation cultivators as the Guard of Honor. For a moment, the group of sect leaders below the stage felt their livers ache. Sure enough, this was the gap between pay-to-win players and ordinary players. Elsewhere, in the machine room under the stage in the Office of Strategic Deception's northern square. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, the chief of the Office of Strategic Deception, was secretly observing everything through a screen. There was a machine room under the stage in every square, and when Grenade-throwing senior immortal's soul devourer appeared, he would directly appear in the center of the stage through a lift in the middle of the machine room. At that moment, the Office of Strategic Deception's founding ceremony had already begun. When hundreds of soul formation cultivators waved red ribbons as they slowly descended from the immortal warship, Grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart surged with emotion. Little Silver and Loopy Toad were both next to him at that moment. Dog too, so many soul formation cultivators, it must have cost a lot of money, woof? Little Silver, also, it's amazing to be able to gather so many soul formation cultivators who have nothing better to do but wave ribbons. But Faye spread out his paws and said, maybe Grandpa Yuan fed them too much. Woof. Little Silver nodded, crouched down, and gave Dog 2 a high five. Although one Silver and one Dog were usually enemies, they surprisingly shared the same opinion on this matter. Brother Dog, why are you suddenly adding suffixes to your words now? Grenade-throwing senior immortal broke out in a sweat. Dog too, ever since I learned the basic dog skills, I can't help wanting to pee whenever I see a pole, woof. Grenade-throwing senior immortal and Little Silver, I told Shen Wuyue, the demon race's holy envoy, about this, and he later thought of a way to deal with it. He said that if you want to get rid of this side effect, you can't restrain yourself. You have to be more like a dog. Because I'm not a dog to begin with, my soul might have subconsciously resisted this technique, woof. So you came up with this idea? That's right, woof. Returning to the topic at hand, Grenade-throwing senior immortal looked at the screen in front of him and said, actually, I didn't spend much money on this bunch of soul formation cultivators. Our sect has just been established, how can we spend money recklessly? Generally, during a sect's founding ceremony, they will invite 2 or 3 soul formation stage cultivators to be the guards of honor. We have a few hundred people here, so our money is about the same as those 2 or 3 soul formation stage cultivators. Little Silver and Loopy Toad were startled. How can it be so cheap? Grenade-throwing senior immortal rubbed his head and grinned. Brother Ling drew me a large stack of soul formation talismans earlier. These talismans can raise a person's aura to the soul formation realm for a short period of time, but in fact they don't have much of an effect on strength. The ones in the sky right now are all at the foundation establishment stage. Little Silver and Dog too. Is this even possible? Grenade-throwing senior immortal, Brother Ling told me before that he was going to draw a void refinement talisman, but when I looked at the guest list, I realized that a lot of them were at the void refinement stage. It wouldn't be very polite to set up a void refinement honor guard, even if it was fake. How embarrassing and shameful it would be. Loopy Toad broke out in a sweat. The group of sect leaders outside would probably already be too ashamed to show their faces when they saw this kind of lineup. At that moment, the indicator light in the mechanism room lit up, and a familiar voice rang out from the speaker on the side. Senior Immortal, everything is ready. The host has arrived backstage. This was Cailian Jinren's voice. Today, Cailian Jinren would be in charge of the entire venue. Okay, then let's go with the plan and have the host come on stage. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded. Cailian Jinren, got it. A few seconds later, a middle-aged host with a very familiar face walked out from backstage with a wide smile on his face. He had very long sideburns and was dressed like a middle-aged elite. His back was ramrod straight as he strolled unhurriedly onto the stage. At that moment, dozens of buses were arriving from different directions in the northern square, and more people were gathering. Sect leaders, deputy sect leaders, relevant personnel, regional leaders, reporters and media from all over the country were already in place, regardless of whether they were at the black level, yellow level or earth level. But these weren't the main event. When he went on stage, the middle-aged host looked at the immortal warship in the sky. As the host, he already knew the entire process of the founding ceremony, and naturally knew what kind of big shots were on the immortal warship. Pa! A spotlight shone down from above the immortal warship on the middle-aged host, and a thick and solemn voice suddenly rang out. The whole venue instantly fell silent, and only the host's voice could be heard. Distinguished guests, leaders, bosses, sect leaders, deputy sect leaders, personnel in charge, and friends in the media circle, good morning. The founding ceremony of the General Office of Strategic Deception, or Office of Strategic Deception, is about to begin. Under the spotlight, many people couldn't help being startled when they saw the middle-aged host's face clearly. Because this host's identity wasn't simple, furthermore, this was the royal host of Huaxiao Nation's national ceremony every year, Wang Han. My God, Teacher Wang is also here. It's actually Teacher Wang Han. Is this for real? It's really Teacher Wang Han. Look at his sideburns and black-rimmed glasses, these are all his real body. What the hell? It's true. How did the Office of Strategic Deception invite him? The moment Wang Han appeared in front of everyone in the spotlight, even the media reporters were stupefied. For a moment, the square was silent, and they were so shocked that they even forgot to press their shutters. This was a host with a rather legendary experience. Not only did he have excellent professional hosting skills, he was also quite strong himself, and was a genuine void refinement expert. A lot of people vaguely remembered Wang Han's rise to fame back then. Back then, Wang Han had once accepted the advertisement for Lao Ten pickled cabbage beef noodles. In the end, when they were reshooting a new scene for the advertisement, the crew was attacked by gangsters. It was at that moment that Teacher Wang Han stepped forward bravely and used the pickled cabbage in the Lao Ten pickled cabbage beef noodles he was eating to strangle the gangsters on the spot, becoming famous in one battle. After that, there was a classic advertising slogan that was widely spread. Chapter 8:12. For a moment, the air froze at Wang Han's appearance. No one thought that this royal host, who often presided over national ceremonies, would actually show up at a sect's founding ceremony. At the same time, Lu Yuming felt even more terrified. He felt that there was a tremendous power behind this Office of Strategic Deception. It was so tremendous that just thinking about it made him feel as if he had been electrocuted. It could only be said that Teacher Wang Han was indeed Teacher Wang Han. In front of so many sect bigwigs and the media, he had shown his unshakable and professional hosting ability. He didn't even have a script, but he already knew the entire process of the founding ceremony by heart. Wang Han raised the microphone, his posture ramrod straight as he said in a booming voice, "Little Raccoon Crispy Noodle Snacks is specially sponsoring this sect founding ceremony." At that moment, a holographic 3D QR code appeared in the air. It turned out to be a mosaic of a little raccoon. All guests present can scan the QR code and draw a prize for the Office of Strategic Deception's founding ceremony. Wang Han continued, "The Office of Strategic Deception has prepared generous prizes for this founding ceremony. 10 ninth grade holy artifacts, 10 6th grade holy artifacts, and 3 3rd grade holy artifacts. In addition to these prizes, there's also a special mystery prize. The special prize is an exquisite luxury item that none of you can imagine." As soon as he finished speaking, whispers immediately rang out from the audience. Holy artifacts, can they be given away so casually? The Office of Strategic Deception is still rich. 3 3rd grade holy artifacts. Ordinary sects would choose to leave them for their own disciples. Hey, is no one curious about what the final mystery prize is? A lot of people took out their phones and started to scan the QR code. They then realized that this QR code was in fact the Office of Strategic Deception's official account. After adding the follower, an automatic reply message popped up. "System, from the General Office of Strategic Deception, thank you for following the official account of the General Office of Strategic Deception. At the same time, we sincerely invite all guests to participate in the sect founding lottery. As long as you give the Office of Strategic Deception an official announcement in your WeChat moments, take a screenshot and upload it to the public platform, you can participate in the lottery. Note, if you don't know the official announcement format, please search for it online." Official announcement format? What's that? A lot of people were dumbfounded when they saw it. Sect leader Lu, do you know what the official announcement format is? A sect leader of the alliance asked Lu Yuming. I have a rough idea. Lu Yuming operated his phone and quickly displayed his screenshot. Lu Yuming took a photo of the huge crowd in the North Square and sent it to his WeChat moments. Lu Yuming, congratulations on the establishment of the Office of Strategic Deception. Official announcement. Many people came over to take a look and were suddenly enlightened. So this is the official style? As expected of sect leader Lu. Thus, many of the sect bigwigs present began to edit their messages. Su Buke, the leader of the Chopping Heavens gang, extra. The Office of Strategic Deception was established today. The only sect that was built was a Heaven rank level 3 sect. Official announcement. Cute leader Big Radish, head of the Avengers, congratulations on the founding of the Office of Strategic Deception. Official announcement. Sect leader of Electric Eels sect Wu Xiuyin. When the Office of Strategic Deception was founded, the northern square was packed with people. I saw a lot of big shots, it was so hot. Official announcement. Sect leader of Physical Cultivation sect Fan 800 million. I've long heard that the newly established chief of the Office of Strategic Deception, grenade-throwing senior immortal, is very popular. Today, the Office of Strategic Deception is founded, and many sect leaders have gathered. Congratulations. I hope that my Physical Cultivation sect and the Office of Strategic Deception will have a chance to work together in the film and television business. I'll be the first to pay taxes. Official announcement. President of True Fragrance Society Wang Jingze. To be honest, when I first received the invitation, Wang Jingze, refused it. Even if I starved to death or jumped off from here, I wouldn't participate in the Office of Strategic Deception's founding ceremony. Nor would I participate in the lucky draw. How sweet. Official announcement. This wave of reposts in support of the lucky draw had a huge impact. In just a few short minutes, it blew up the internet and instantly became a trending topic. The establishment of the General Office of Strategic Deception was a trending topic, and it directly hit the headlines with the word explode. A lot of people even found that the search interface was stuck when they entered the software. The official announcement sent by so many sect heads and well-known media reporters from all over the country caused a huge uproar in WeChat Moments, Weibo, Tieba, and even many other platforms. The keyword, Great Death Courting Senior, was also on the list under the trending topic, Establishment of the General Office of Strategic Deception. In the machine room, grenade-throwing senior immortal observed the activity online. In the blink of an eye, the Office of Strategic Deception had become today's topic of conversation. Before the media who had come to the Northern Square had even had time to interview or report on the matter, the founding of the sect had already dominated the headlines on the front pages of all the major news media. As expected, Sister Tsilian is amazing, grenade-throwing senior immortal said. Little Silver was very curious. What's this special grand prize? Food, grenade-throwing senior immortal replied. Loopy Toad reacted almost instantly. Don't tell me it's Little Master Ling's crispy noodle snacks, woof. Haha, Brother Dog's reaction is fast. But I did suggest to Brother Ling that we use an enchanted crispy noodle snack packet to cook a delicacy as the special grand prize, but Brother Ling didn't agree. So in the end, the special grand prize was changed. Although it's not a crispy noodle snack, it's still an exquisite luxury item. Furthermore, it's a delicacy. It's just that this delicacy is too expensive to make, it's even comparable to a first-class holy weapon. After eating it, you can directly increase your lifespan by 200 years. 200 years. Little Silver's mouth dropped open in surprise. What on earth is this? Charcoal grilled purple cloud wings and stewed heavenly Dao broccoli, grenade-throwing senior immortal said. Little Silver and Loopy Toad, at that moment, the voice of host Wang Han rang out in the Northern Square again. Before the sect founding ceremony officially begins, the Office of Strategic Deception has prepared a side performance. All sect leaders present can volunteer to come forward and challenge the leader of our sect's recreation hall. If you win, you'll directly receive a first-class holy weapon. In the machine room, Little Silver and Loopy Toad were shocked when they heard this. Master is here? Little Master is here? One Silver and one Dog said almost in unison. Brother Ling has to prepare for the final exam, so naturally he won't be able to come to the founding ceremony. But this is, after all, a major event for the sect, so Brother Ling is giving face by sending half a clone. Half a clone? That's a clone with half the spirit power of a normal, complete clone. Brother Ling said that all the sect leaders present are pretty weak. If he uses a complete clone, he's afraid he'll directly kill them. After all, this is a founding ceremony. It's not good to see blood. Our good start should be a little more harmonious. Chapter 8:13. Leader of the Recreation Hall. Before the Office of Strategic Deception's founding ceremony this time, all the major sects had already investigated the details of the Office of Strategic Deception, and this recreation hall was naturally in everyone's line of sight. This was because it was one of the 7 core departments that the Office of Strategic Deception had clearly announced to the public, and its main task was to sell snacks in the sect. To put it bluntly, it was similar to a school snack shop. A lot of people didn't know why the Office of Strategic Deception had set up this recreation hall. The only thing they could be sure of was that the leader of this department definitely wasn't a simple person. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. This was a Daoist name that no one present had ever heard of. The truth was that Silian Jinren had also deliberately arranged for this showdown. All the reputable sect leaders in the cultivation circle would be present at the sect's founding ceremony on this day. This was a great opportunity to build up the image of Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. On one hand, he could establish the dignity of the Office of Strategic Deception's new sect in front of everyone, and on the other hand, he could wash away the attention that his use of the Daoist name, Lingjinren, had attracted. So although he had sent half a clone this time, this clone had been specially molded and even its height had been redone, which was very different from his real body. When I asked Brother Ling to help me before, you've always used the image of Lingjinren. Now that I think about it, you were too careless. Brother Ling is someone who likes to keep a low profile, so the purpose of this event is to confuse the public. To put it bluntly, it's to help Brother Ling create a new alternate account. Loopy Toad, this explanation was actually quite simple and crude. Little Silver, although a lot of people haven't seen Master before, this is also Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's first appearance. Won't people realize that these two are actually the same person? Don't worry about that. In the mechanism room, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal waved his hand and said, I've set the Daoist name Lingjinren as an honorary visiting official of the sect. He'll appear together with the VIPs on the Immortal Worship later. Little Silver, is that also a clone? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal shook his head. No, that's a magic treasure that Brother Wang Ming made to simulate a human. He's also changed his appearance, but that's a secret for the time being. The Lingjinren replica on the Immortal Worship is now wearing a full suit of armor, just like an armored warrior. Little Silver and Loopy Toad, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal pressed the pager button. All units, attention, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch is ready to go on stage. Wang Han received the message and retreated to the side. The sound of machinery turning rang out on the stage. Along the center line of the stage, the entire stage slowly separated. Following that, a martial arts arena rose slowly. This was a standard 50 by 50 meter combat stage. The entire combat stage had been specially designed with extremely strong resistance. Furthermore, it had a shape memory ability. Even if it was beaten beyond recognition, it could still recover on its own. Just as the arena appeared in front of everyone, the legendary Crispy Noodles True Monarch rose with it and stood in the very center of the arena. This is Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. Many people present looked at the young man in the middle of the arena. The young man was very skinny, and his skin was not considered white. It was a very healthy wheat color. Most importantly, his face seemed somewhat familiar. Loopy Toad, in particular, was instantly stunned when it saw the young man. It was sure that when Little Master Ling had molded the face, he had used someone's image as a reference. Furthermore, it was very familiar with this person. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled. Brother Ling's clone was modeled after Senior Wang when he was young. Loopy Toad instantly understood. It turned out that it was Father Wang when he was young. No wonder it felt that it had seen this face somewhere before. There were photos of Father Wang when he was young on the bookshelf in Father Wang's study. Loopy Toad remembered that Father Wang had come from the countryside, and had stayed in the countryside with Old Man Wang before coming to the city. Back then, Father Wang had been a famous handsome young man in the surrounding villages. He had been born handsome, and had been very popular with women since he was a child. The most important thing was that Father Wang had very beautiful phoenix eyes. Because he often wore glasses after he started writing, this trait wasn't so obvious anymore. This was also the reason why Father Wang had once suspected that Wang Ling wasn't his biological son. Because Mother Wang had very beautiful double eyelids and big eyes. And he had phoenix eyes, but why did the two of them give birth to a dead fish's eyes? Later, Father Wang convinced himself with a reason: his son, Wang Ling. He must have started to mutate in the womb. Loopy Toad never thought that little Master Ling would actually let this half-clone appear in the image of Father Wang when he was young. The match suddenly seemed to have become interesting. Which one of you wants to go first? Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch asked. The unexpectedly gentle voice sounded like that of a modest gentleman. Loopy Toad, my God, this voice. It's so nice. I'm going to get pregnant just from hearing it. Woof. Even the voice was very similar to Father Wang's. But this was Father Wang's voice when he was young, stripped of the vicissitudes of time. This voice was surprisingly gentle and pleasant to listen to. But very quickly, Loopy Toad realized that this wasn't the crux of the problem. This clone, why does it make such a sound? Woof. Loopy Toad was alarmed. This half-clone was specially made by Brother Ling. It's a clone that won't disappear, so both its appearance and voice have been altered. The most important thing is that this half-clone has the ability to think on its own, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said. Of course, if Brother Ling wants to withdraw it, you can do so at any time. Loopy Toad and Little Silver were stunned when they heard this. A clone that had the ability to think on its own and wouldn't disappear. Even Nuwa couldn't create a human so easily. It was very obvious that this was something that only Wang Ling could do. It was already amazing enough to mold a clone's face, but to keep it from dispersing and still have spiritual intelligence was like creating a new life. Not long after Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, who represented Wang Ling's clone, declared war on the arena, a figure immediately leaped onto the stage. It was the sect leader of Leaping Sect, Sakamoto Jizaburo. He was a foreigner from Sun Island, but because he liked Huashio culture very much, he had already settled down in Huashio Nation and set up Leaping Sect, starting his business by learning body movement techniques. At that moment, Wang Han announced the rules. According to the rules of this match, as long as your sect leaders can touch Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's body, you win the match. Touch his body? That's simple. The Office of Strategic Deception is a little too conceited. None of the sect leaders present are pushovers. Someone laughed. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but that I want to save time. There's still a lot to do. Wang Han smiled and added, in addition, this match isn't one-on-one. As long as you're willing to challenge him, you can even work together. Of course, the final prize can only be given to the person who touches Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch first. If you leave the arena during the challenge, you lose. Hearing this, many of the sect leaders present were indignant, and jumped onto the arena one after another. I'm Steaming Sect. Fight. I'm Sweet Tofu Pudding Sect. Fight. I'm 3 Days and 2 Sects. Fight. Chapter 8:14. Inside the machine room, Little Silver and Loopy Toad frowned deeply as they watched each sect leader bravely jump onto the stage. That wasn't right. Why didn't any of these sects seem serious? Apart from the Leaping Sect, the rest of them sounded like they came out of a comedy novel. Steaming Sect and Sweet Tofu Flour Sect could endure it. Nowadays, it wasn't strange for foodies to establish sects in order to stick to their beliefs. Apart from Sweet Tofu Flour Sect, there was also Salty Tofu Flour Sect and Spicy Tofu Flour Sect. Salty, sweet, and spicy, the three sects had been fighting for a very long time. Now that they had established their own sects and were in a hurry to recruit people, they despised each other. So here was the question, what the hell was this 3 days and 2 sects? Could it be that some unscrupulous author was slandering someone? Little Silver, this 3 days and 2 sects, Brother Silver, are you talking about this? The name does sound strange, but it's a genuine Earth-level second-class sect, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal explained. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal explained, but I wasn't expecting the sect leader of this sect to accept the challenge. That's because this sect is more used to fighting with words. Fighting with words? 3 days and 2 sects. This sect was actually originally called 3 Days Sect. It records all kinds of cultivation world secrets, compiles them into novels, and publishes them on a website to make a profit. Most of the disciples it recruits are literary talents. After signing a contract with the sect, they become paid novelists, and their basic necessities are all in the sect. The reason for this name is that the highest record for writing a book in this sect is 3 days. A sect disciple wrote a novel in 3 days, and even won a literature award. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal laughed. But their biggest enemy at the moment is actually Senior Wang. Last time, when Senior Wang fought for monthly votes, 3 Days Sect also played tricks behind the scenes, but in the end, Senior Wang still defeated them. Then their current name starts with that cultivation Chinese network guru author Zhu Gu, who was angered by Senior Wang to leave a few years ago. At that time, Wang Situ angered Zhu Gu into leaving a huge commotion, and after Zhu Gu left the website, he found another sect, which was 3 Days Sect. At the time, the sect leader of 3 Days Sect strongly invited Zhu Gu to join them and gave him shares to be the sect's deputy sect leader. And then? The sect leader of the 3 Heavens sect had good intentions, but ever since Zhu Gu joined the sect, he started to ask the sect to go out and collect materials. This is inconsistent with the original purpose of Santian's sect to stick to the keyboard and work hard to write. Not long after Zhu Gu joined the sect, the conflict between the Orthodox sect and the Vice sect became bigger and bigger. But even though the two of them quarreled, they never thought of separating from the sect. Because once they did, the 3 Heavens sect would definitely fall from the Earth sect to the Black sect or even the Yellow sect. Therefore, ever since Zhu Gu joined the 3 Heavens sect, the 3 Heavens sect had been divided into the material gathering faction with Zhu Gu as their base, and the homebody faction with the original sect master as their base. In the end, we simply changed the name to 3 Days and 2 Teachings. Little Silver and Loopy Toad, at this time, the number of people on the stage increased. There were more than 10 sect leaders who took the initiative to go up. However, most of these sect masters were from the Earth and Xuanji sections. Some of the Heaven sect masters, such as Lu Yuming, were still in the wait-and-see stage. To be honest, Lu Yuming didn't dare to make a move. Even if the prize was a very tempting grade 1 sacred artifact, Lu Yuming's intuition told him that this crispy noodles Dao monarch strength wasn't simple at all. At that moment, because there were already a lot of people on the stage, there were still a few sect leaders who had wanted to go up. Seeing this, they decided to step back first. If there was still a chance, they would wait for the next wave to come up. On one hand, the arena was only so big, it wouldn't be easy to control one's fists and kicks if there were too many people on the stage. On the other hand, if these 10 or so people all lost to one person, how humiliating would that be? Everyone, I suggest that we join forces and use a strong array to suppress him and imprison him, then each of us can use our fists and kicks. Whoever touches him first gets the prize, how about that? Sakamoto Shisaburo, the sect leader of Leaping Sect, suggested. I agree. I have no objections. That's fairer. But when everyone goes up together, we have to be on the same starting line. The 10 or so sect leaders thought it over and nodded one after another. Hearing this, Lu Yuming also nodded inwardly. This was a pretty smart approach. In a situation where they weren't sure of the other party's exact strength, it was indeed a good strategy to use many people to suppress him and then attack together. But whether it would succeed or not was another matter. Since there was no limit to the number of people in this duel, it meant that this crispy noodles Dao monarch, who represented the Office of Strategic Deception, was indeed prepared to fight one against many. Ready. Do it. And so, in the next moment, Sakamoto Shisaburo, the sect leader of Leaping Sect, gave the order. There were a total of 12 Earth-level sect leaders in the arena, each casting their own sealing spells. In an instant, all kinds of colorful dazzling lights accompanied by intertwining runes rushed into the sky. Earth-level sect leaders all had the strength of Soul Formation stage, so the speed at which they formed hand seals was extremely fast. They cooperated with each other in casting spells, integrating the 12 sealing spells together. In an instant, a powerful pressure descended on the arena, making everyone's scalp itch. 12 sealing spells. Many of the heaven-level sect leaders of the Sky Alliance secretly watched from below, sighing at the pressure of these 12 sealing spells. As void refinement cultivators, they could naturally break free, but it wouldn't be that easy. Rumble. There was a deafening sound. The 12 sealing runes, accompanied by colorful light effects, intertwined and charged at Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch. The same type of spell resonated with each other at that moment, and unexpectedly produced more power than expected. The instant it struck the sky, it condensed into a massive sealing dragon. Someone below the arena was horrified. The power of a level 67 seal. A lot of people looked at the number displayed on their wristbands. It was indeed a level 67 seal. The sports wristbands that cultivators wore on their bodies now had a combat strength prediction function, and could also quickly analyze the damage of moves. Every type of spell was divided into levels 1 to 100. A level 67 seal had already reached the standard of a level 6 sealing spell, and its power was close to level 7. It was far more powerful than a soul formation cultivator could cast a sealing spell, but this Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch in the arena didn't look the slightest bit flustered when the dragon charged at him. Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch, ha ha ha. As expected, everyone is very strong. These 12 sealing spells resonated with each other, and the effect is outstanding, very amazing. At that moment, Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch's obsidian eyes were gradually colored by the halo. Just as everyone was paying attention to Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch's movements, thinking that the other party was going to use some kind of spell in response. Everyone only saw Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch cross his arms to form an X in front of him. Rebound. Chapter 8:15. The huge seal magic dragon charged at Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch's crossed arms with a thunderous light effect. But before it could get close, the magic dragon actually changed direction on the spot and, with a beautiful flick of its tail, flew directly at the 12 sect leaders to bite them. The reversal of the situation instantly chilled the hearts of the sect leaders in the arena. Rebound spell? What kind of ability was this? They had never seen this kind of spell before. Admittedly, there were a lot of rebound spells, but most of them could only reflect part of the damage. They had never seen a spell like this that returned the seal rune dragon intact. The moment the dozen or so sect leaders saw the seal rune dragon charge in the opposite direction, their hearts filled with despair. They already had no chance of winning this match. That was because this seal rune dragon had gained even more power under the mutual resonance of the 12 sealing spells, far exceeding their expectations. Now that it was being reflected intact, none of them could stop it. They could only try their best to resist it and see if they could withstand it. Originally, working together was the safest method, but they had miscalculated that the other party would actually rebound. Thus, the current situation felt like they had shot themselves in the foot. The moment the rune dragon was reflected back, the 12 sect leaders lined up in a row and cast all kinds of spells to dispel the curse. Release. Release seal. Sunflower unsealing acupuncture hand. BZZZ. After a desperate struggle, the rune dragon finally came crashing down. The dozen or so sect leaders were all locked in place, unable to move. The outcome of this match had already been decided. The 12 people were all locked in place. Even if Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch didn't cast spells, he would still win if he swept all of them off the arena. They lost. What a pity, these sect leaders were only one step away from the grand prize. A lot of the media below the arena were taking photos, and the flashes kept flashing. Don't take photos. Don't take photos of me. In the arena, Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch had already released the seals on the sect leaders, and they covered their faces one by one. It was really a little humiliating for 12 people to lose against one person. On the immortal warship floating in the air, the 10 generals were also watching this side show. As perfected immortal experts who had the god's perspective, they could sense how powerful the seal rune dragon was. The rune dragon was extremely fast and had a powerful confinement ability. Furthermore, it also had the effect of sealing spirits. Under normal circumstances, the instant the rune dragon rushed over, this crispy noodles Dao monarch shouldn't have any strength left to resist and definitely wouldn't be able to cast any spells. Everyone, what do you think? General E floated cross-legged in the air, his white exercise clothes fluttering despite the lack of wind. The sharpness in his eyes was restrained as it formed its own sword chi. The moment this seal rune dragon charged at him, General E analyzed the move. In the face of this move, ordinary spells were completely useless. Only if he used the limitless sword Dao to counter it would there be a chance of breaking it. But that was where the problem lay. Even a true immortal would need time to decipher this talisman dragon. But this crispy noodles Dao monarch was actually able to bounce it back unscathed, which was truly astonishing. Although I can't be certain, I can be certain that this Dao Lord has the power of the heavenly Dao. Marshal Jiang frowned. As expected, the core members of the Office of Strategic Deception aren't simple people. Grenade-throwing senior immortal actually hid this bomb until now. In fact, before coming to the Office of Strategic Deception. The Office of Strategic Deception had been wary of Ling Zhenren, but in the end, no one expected Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch to suddenly appear at this time. At that moment, Ling Zhenren, whom they had wanted to investigate the most, was standing right next to them. Furthermore, this Ling Zhenren didn't look as powerful as the legend said. Could it be that the information was wrong? General Yi cupped his chin and looked at Ling Zhenren, who was sitting upright on the sofa. Ling Zhenren was covered in a thick layer of magic armor, and it was impossible to see his face inside. The 10 generals weren't in a hurry to use the true immortal eye to probe. That was a very rude action. In any case, after they disembarked, the legendary Ling Zhenren would take off his armor, so there was no hurry. It was just that their previous guess that Ling Zhenren was Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch now looked like it probably wasn't true. At this moment, the 10 generals were communicating with each other via voice transmission. The head of state thinks so highly of the Office of Strategic Deception. On one hand, it's because of Wang Situ, and on the other hand, it's actually to extend an olive branch to this senior behind the Office of Strategic Deception. Our trip this time is to respond to the Office of Strategic Deception's invitation, and also to move this senior with our sincerity. This senior will play a very important role in whether our Huaxiao nation can successfully survive the Heavenly Dao national calamity this time, said Medicine St. Luo Huaiqiao. I feel that all this is a bit of a smokescreen. Marshal Jiang narrowed his eyes at that moment. What do you mean, Battle Saint? All this time, we've been investigating and tracking down the senior behind the Office of Strategic Deception, and in fact, we've been investigating grenade-throwing senior immortal's backer. But whether it's Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch or Ling Zhenren, I have a strong feeling that this is actually a smokescreen. Marshal Jiang suddenly said, has it ever occurred to you that this grenade-throwing senior immortal is very suspicious? Battle Saint, you mean, my meaning is very clear. Marshal Jiang nodded. He is the senior behind that senior. But he's only at the soul formation stage. This is also a smokescreen. Marshal Jiang maintained his point of view. I'm afraid Ling Zhenren and Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch are just a test for us. If we're too rash, we definitely won't be able to. Based on Battle Saint's analysis, I think it's really possible. Explosion Saint also said, everyone, think about it, why is this grenade-throwing senior immortal still alive despite courting death? A soul formation cultivator who has made so many enemies is actually still unscathed? In addition, there's also Odd Zhua. Odd Zhua? Everyone, think about it carefully. Odd Zhua's career has been flourishing in recent months. As a golden core cultivator, he's been able to capture all kinds of big shots one after another. There's clearly someone behind this. And this time, Odd Zhua actually received an invitation from grenade-throwing senior immortal to set up an inspection team at the Office of Strategic Deception. Is there a hint behind this? Explosion Saint's analysis is very reasonable. The 10 saints nodded. If that's the case, then everything makes sense. General Yi sighed. It seems that grenade-throwing senior immortal is indeed the senior behind the scenes. Yes. That must be it. Inside the immortal warship, Wang Ling used the clone, Ling Zhenren, to easily understand what the 10 saints were thinking. Chapter 8:16. Imagination was never something that could be done by just one person. When a group of people were imagining the same thing together, the holes in their imaginations would often become bigger and bigger, eventually forming a sinkhole. The 10 generals proved this with their actual actions and strength. A few minutes later, the 10 generals on standby on the immortal warship, represented by General Yi, had the following conversation with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal in the control room. Your Excellency, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, may I ask when we can go on stage? General Yi asked weakly. For a moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal didn't react, and only felt that this sentence seemed a little strange, but he still replied, General Yi and the other generals, please wait a little longer. After this entertainment exhibition match is over, it'll be time for the generals to take the stage. We are still at the warm-up stage. The generals can come, so we must control the atmosphere well. Your Excellency, Senior Immortal, what are you saying? We're just following orders. General Yi laughed. Actually, more than half of us 10 generals have already retired. Currently, Explosion Saint General Bai and Wisdom Saint General Qi are mostly in charge of Huaxiao Alliance's main affairs. As for the rest of them, they're just making use of their old age after retirement. Ha ha ha, General Yi is too modest. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said. General Yi, Your Excellency Senior Immortal, don't call me General Yi. Old Yi is fine. Who's with whom between us? You're welcome. Old Yi, is this appropriate? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was blank. General Yi seemed a little strange. Isn't this a little inappropriate? What's wrong with that? Or you can just call me Little E or Little E from now on. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sucked in a cold breath. Then, should I call you Brother E? Brother E? That works too. General E thought about it carefully. Since he was here to worm his way into being friends, he naturally had to change the way he addressed him. Calling him General all the time was really too formal. Now that they were addressing each other as brothers, it did sound like they were much closer. In the future, Lord Perfected Immortal, please don't stand on ceremony. You can call us brothers and sisters among the 10 generals. There's no relationship. Medical Sage Luo Qiuhuai, you can call her Sister Luo. Sister. Luo? Wait a minute. Hearing this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal finally realized that something wasn't right. Just now, it seemed that General Yi had called him Lord Senior Immortal. That's not right. What was going on? Why did the 10 generals suddenly address him respectfully? Holding his head, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt his brain go duang in pain. General Yi, oh, no, Brother Yi, do you have something to say to me? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. General Yi laughed. No, I just think we'll be closer to each other this way. After all, the relationship between our Huaxiao Alliance and the Office of Strategic Deception is extraordinary, just like the relationship between a bride's family and a daughter-in-law. Brother E, this analogy. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal found himself at a loss for words. My analogy is very appropriate. I'm not done yet. What I mean is that our Huaxiao Alliance is the maiden family, the Office of Strategic Deception is the daughter-in-law, and us 10 generals are the dowry maids. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Little Silver, Loopy Toad. At the same time, the arena challenge in the martial arena had reached its climax. After the defeat of the 12 Earth-level sect leaders, there were already 3 Sky-level sect leaders who went on stage to challenge one-on-one. It could only be said that when all was said and done, the sect leaders of Sky-level sects had their own stubbornness and didn't want to be associated with others. In fact, a large part of the reason was that after seeing the 12 Earth-level sect leaders swept away, a lot of the media outlets kept taking photos and writing articles about it. This action made many of the Sky-level sect leaders who had originally wanted to form a faction to challenge give up on the idea of forming a group. If they went up and ended up like these 12 Earth-level sect leaders, they would definitely lose face if the news got out. So, it was better to challenge one-on-one. Even if they lost, they could say that they weren't informed today. However, Although the 3 sky-level sect leaders went on stage to challenge one-on-one, their performances in the arena weren't satisfactory. This Crispy Noodles Dao monarch was really too strong. In a short 5 minutes, the 3 challengers were sent off the stage. In the arena, everyone only heard 3 miserable cries. Aya. Ouch. Ow, ow, ow. The media. The last person to cry out in pain was the sect leader of the sky-level 6th-level sand sculpture sect. The sand sculpture sect had been doing very well in the last 2 years, and it was famous for its secret earth, wood, sand, and stone technique. Not only could it be used to build buildings, it could also be used in battle. Nowadays, many civil engineering graduates from universities had joined the sand sculpture sect, and many of them had become outstanding architects. As the sect leader of a sect, Sand Sculpture Sect leader Ni, full name, Ni Ilua, naturally wasn't to be underestimated. In the arena earlier, sect leader Ni had directly used his ultimate move, Sand Sculpture Burial. The rubble in the arena was instantly reduced to sand by this move, and in the end, it turned into 2 blue dragons that tightly bound Crispy Noodles Dao monarch. They aimed at his ankles and suddenly shot up from the ground to wrap around him. This move was so terrifying. The thick sand turned into earthy dragons that crawled up his ankles, directly making it seem as if Crispy Noodles Dao monarch's lower body had become one with the arena, and he couldn't move at all. And the most terrifying thing was when this technique successfully wrapped around him. Almost everybody could sense that enormous molecules of spiritual energy were being condensed in the sand. The dragon formed by the burial of sand sculptures was absorbing the spiritual energy deep inside the mother lodes and dissecting it into dense molecules of spiritual energy. This move doesn't consume much spirit energy at all, sect leader Ni. The spirit power is completely extracted from the earth veins. Once it accumulates to a certain amount, sect leader Ni just needs to gently urge it, and this Crispy Noodles Dao monarch's legs will be crippled. Lu Yuming analyzed from below. But he didn't say it in absolute terms. Because he didn't see any panic on this Crispy Noodles Dao monarch's face. In the next moment, sect leader Ni put his hands behind his back and stared at Crispy Noodles Dao monarch. Now you have 2 choices, Dao monarch. 1. Surrender, and I can send you off the arena with dignity. 2. Blow off the Daylord's legs. But don't worry, Dao monarch, I'll control my strength and direct them to blow up. They won't shatter, and I can reattach them after I'm done. Sect leader Ni, it seems you're really confident in yourself. Crispy Noodles Dao monarch chuckled, and then in the next instant, his expression suddenly turned serious. Staring straight at the earth dragons wrapped around his lower body, he shouted in a low voice, "You, don't touch me." Chapter 8:17. The sect leader of the sand sculpture sect was instantly dumbfounded by this move. This is, Lu Yoming's eyes widened as he revealed an extremely horrified expression. Although he wasn't sure if that move was what he thought it was, he was certain that he wasn't mistaken. On the side, sect leader's son, who had just been freed from the reporters, also revealed an extremely surprised expression. This is, sect leader Lu's eyes darkened, and he sent a message, "Words are law, words of law enforcement." Sect leader's son felt as if his head had been struck by lightning, and with a buzzing sound, he stood rooted to the ground. Wasn't this the legendary divine Tao that one would naturally comprehend after reaching the pinnacle of cultivation? Sect leader's son sucked in a sharp breath. This Crispy Noodles Dao monarch was actually a venerated immortal? Although they were the heads of heaven-grade sects, both Sect Master Lu and Sect Master's son had limited horizons. Since they had never touched the god domain, they naturally thought that the celestial monarch realm was the highest realm. But this couldn't be blamed on sect leader's son, because the vast majority of cultivators didn't know about this. As the saying goes, a leaf obscures the eye. Crispy Noodles Dao monarch is too strong. Someone sighed from below. Even with such methods, he was still just a sect team leader. Then what about the Office of Strategic Deception's overall fighting strength? It was truly hard to estimate, I admit defeat. Sect leader Ni of the Sand Sculpture sect was no fool either. His previous move could be regarded as his ultimate move, but it was easily neutralized by his opponent. This Crispy Noodles Dao monarch wasn't on the same level as him at all. Therefore, it was better to simply surrender and step down. That would make him look more dignified. In the machine room, grenade-throwing senior immortal spoke to Crispy Noodles Dao monarch telepathically from a distance. Dao monarch, it's about time to pack up, it's almost time. No matter who comes up next, you just have to put down the water. Sure. Crispy Noodles Dao monarch nodded. The immortal warship had been hovering above them for a long time. After all, the 10 generals were sitting on it. They represented the largest official governing body for cultivators in Huaxiao Nation. It wouldn't be good to drag things out for too long. Is there anyone else who wants to challenge me? At this time, it was clear that Wang Han had also received the message from the computer room and decided to speed up the progress of this entertainment exhibition match. However, none of the sky-level sect leaders dared to come up to the stage. In an instant, the scene fell into an awkward silence. I used too much force. Crispy Noodles Dao monarch pursed his lips, his beautiful phoenix eyes sweeping back and forth in the crowd. Several minutes later, someone in the crowd finally raised his hand. Excuse me, may I take up the challenge? Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. It was a young man who didn't look very old. However, the young man's clothes were very tattered. It was a shabby magical robe whose only function was to keep warm. In fact, this was already the most decent piece of clothing that the young man could take out, of course. Wang Han nodded. I haven't asked which sect this brother is from. All the sect leaders gathered in the northern square had a VIP number, and this young man was naturally no exception. He had a badge pinned to his chest and a pendant that the Office of Strategic Deception had given him hung around his neck. The young man smiled in embarrassment. I am the sect master, Su Xing, sect leader. Are you the sect leader? Or the sect master? No. My sect is called sect leader, Su Xing replied. For a moment, everyone froze on the spot. Sect leader, what kind of sect was this? Why had they never heard of it before? Many of the sect bigwigs present shook their heads inwardly. But in the arena, Wang Han had already looked up information on this sect leader based on the VIP number. It was confirmed that this was the sect leader of a dust-level sect. President Liu, have you heard of this sect? Sect leader Son of the Alliance asked. I think I've heard of it. I heard that it was one of the most miserable sects last year. Lu Yuming nodded slightly. When the sect leader was first established, it was originally a black-level sect. But later, because of poor management, the number of sect leaders and disciples declined year by year. They fell from black level to yellow level. The sect's land changed several times, and they sold it to pay off their debts, then bought a new place to settle down. I thought this sect was going to close down. I didn't expect it to still be standing strong, and now it's actually dust level. Earth level sects were the lowest level sects, and most of the disciples in these sects did manual labor. For example, a lot of high-level sect construction, relocation, weed trimming, and so on would be outsourced to dust-level sects for low-cost labor. Furthermore, dust-level sects had the lowest standards for establishing a sect. As long as the sect leader reached the foundation establishment stage and recruited 10 people, he could establish a sect. Apart from that, he only needed to pay a Huaxiao Alliance membership fee once every 10 years. But given Su Xing's dire straits, forget whether the sect leader could afford the Huaxiao Alliance membership fee in his current state of business. It was likely that even the number of people in the sect already couldn't meet the initial requirements, and it was clear that Su Xing's next words completely confirmed Lu Yoming's conjecture. Su Xing, I'm the only one left in our sect leader. If we can't solve the problem of numbers before we pay the membership fee, sect leader will disappear. Everyone, may I ask what your honorable sect does? Of course it's clapping, sect leader. Su Xing said, clapping is also hard work. How can no one clap for a leader's speech on a large-scale occasion? And our sect leader specializes in this line of work. After Su Xing said this, everyone was suddenly enlightened. So it's a water army that can clap. You can interpret it however you want. Su Xing shook his head indifferently and scratched his itchy buzz cut. It had been a while since he had showered. how come you're the only one left in sect leader? Someone was curious. A celebrity invited us to clap before, and requested that we use 5 people to film the effect of Chu's army of thousands and thousands of horses. Then, the other 4 used too much force and killed themselves. After that, I'm the only one left. Everyone, at that moment, Su Xing stared at the arena. So, can I go on stage? I'm still hoping to sell this first-class holy artifact to pay off my debt and make a comeback. Of course you can, Wang Han cleared his throat. Sir, you can go first, oh. As soon as he said that, Su Xing's figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. He was so fast that it was too much for the eyes to take in. No one expected the sect leader of a dust-level sect to actually have this kind of strength. When Su Xing reappeared, he was already in front of Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch. A slap, like a sudden clap of thunder, directly smashed towards his face. The power of Heavenly Dao? Chapter 8:18. Although Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch's clone had its own consciousness, its memories were synchronized. Thus, when he had exchanged blows with this dust-level sect head, the memory of his clash with Su Xing had also been transmitted to his mind. This was an evenly matched exchange of palms. The instant their palms collided, a powerful gust of wind instantly formed. It was as if a huge mountain was toppling over, or as if seawater was flowing backwards. The powerful airwave caused many people to be unable to control their bodies and fall backwards. No one had thought that the sect head of a mere dust-level sect would actually be so powerful to fight Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch head-on, and even force him to exchange blows with him. No one could have imagined that in the end, the grand prize of a first-class holy weapon would ultimately be won by the sect head of a dust-level sect. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had said earlier that he was going easy on Su Xing, but in fact, that wasn't the case. Su Xing had already won. Even if this palm hadn't hurt Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch's clone in the slightest, Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch had no choice but to exchange blows with him. A palm that contained the power of Heavenly Dao was absolutely explosive and lethal. Wang Ling was sure that if his clone hadn't met the palm just now, even if the palm had been deflected somewhere else, it would have been impossible for Wang Ling to escape. Wang Ling was sure that if the clone hadn't exchanged blows with him just now, even if the palm had been deflected somewhere else, the terrifying destructive power would have instantly corroded the entire arena and then spread throughout the northern square. The worst-case scenario was Heavenly Dao radiation, which was a power that even cultivators' bodies couldn't resist. Currently, Huaxiao Nation's current cultivation science and technology had already conquered and prevented cancer. But the cancerous changes caused by Heavenly Dao radiation were of a special kind, and were known as spirit cancer. That was to say, even the spirit energy cultivators used contained cancer cells. This was the only major scientific obstacle that currently couldn't be overcome. Of course, it wasn't because of Heavenly Dao that spirit cancer had been discovered. Furthermore, it was because some cultivators who had failed their tribulation. After failing their tribulation, there was a high chance that they would be punished by Heavenly Dao, and the survival rate after the punishment was 20%. Thus, many cultivators who were lucky enough to survive the punishment found cases of spirit cancer after the punishment. Currently, according to official statistics, the probability of spirit cancer among those who survived a Heavenly Dao punishment was 0.5%. 0.5% didn't seem like much, but this was a global statistic. Thus, Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch had no choice but to exchange blows with him just now. This was a clash of palms, and it was also to neutralize the power of the Heavenly Daos in this palm, so as to prevent the radiation of the Heavenly Daos from spreading. But after that palm strike just now, Wang Ling was certain of one thing. This sect leader Su Xing in front of him probably didn't know that Wang Ling could use the power of Heavenly Dao. Those who could truly control Heavenly Dao could control the power of radiation, such as Wang Ling, or that Wang Zhen who had recently come looking for trouble. Although he couldn't control the output of primordial qi, he had full control over Heavenly Dao. He had always been very confident in his understanding of Heavenly Dao. This thing was much simpler than the midterm and final exams. You win. Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch straightened his clothes and brushed off a few wisps of dust. At the same time, inside the mechanism room, grenade-throwing senior immortal also received a text message from Wang Ling. Little Silver stared at the screen. This person seems to have the same scent as Master, but much, much weaker. A strange person. Grenade-throwing senior immortal nodded. It is a little strange. Brother Ling has already texted me. He believes that Brother Su has unconsciously comprehended the heavenly Tao. Woof. Unconsciously comprehended? Loopy Toad's face was full of question marks. That's right, that's Brother Ling's preliminary judgment, but it still needs to be confirmed. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said, if we can find out the main reason for unconsciously comprehending the heavenly Tao, it will be a major breakthrough. That makes sense. Little Silver and Loopy Toad both nodded. Teacher Wang, please tell this Brother Su Xing to come to Sect Hall to receive his award after the celebration, Grenade-throwing senior immortal said to Teacher Wang Han through the walkie-talkie. Just like that, Su Xing was quietly taken care of. There was a good saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Even the sect leader of a dust-level sect couldn't be underestimated. Most of the people present were sincerely convinced by the outcome of this match. Even the sky-level sect leaders who had challenged Su Xing earlier might not have been able to do the same with the strength and destructive power of that palm just now. That was because a lot of people could see that while Crispy Noodle's Tao Monarch's palm seemed to have met Su Xing's attack head-on, it was actually to neutralize it. There was a kind of spring wind and rain power. The moment Su Xing's extremely explosive palm came into contact with it, it was like a sponge facing the edge of a knife, absorbing a lot of the power. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been as simple as the northern square falling backward. If Crispy Noodle's Tao Monarch hadn't taken action to neutralize it, even Lu Yuming himself felt that he might have been blown away. According to the rules, the prize for the entertainment performance in the arena this time will be won by Mr. Su Xing, the sect leader of a dust-level sect. Mr. Su Xing can leave the stage and rest first. Please come to Sect Hall later to receive your award. After Teacher Wang said this, he took the lead in applauding, and for a moment, the northern square was filled with thunderous applause. A lot of camera flashes hit Su Xing's face, giving him a long-lost sense of excitement. This first-class holy weapon could definitely pay off the sect's debt in one go, and there might even be some left over. After this reporter's report, sect leader's reputation would definitely soar in the future. The people in the northern square now were all authoritative media outlets in the cultivation circle. With this report, it was really hard to estimate how much profit sect leader would bring in the future. Sect leader is going to be famous. We'll go find this sect leader Su later and get close to him. Lu Yuming also saw this scene. We'll go find him and get close to him? Sect leader Sun Hanja said. Although sect leader is a dust-level sect, after this wave of fame, it won't be hard at all for him to advance to earth or even heaven level in a short time. Besides, this sect leader isn't incompetent. You should have felt the destructive power of that palm just now, Lu Yuming said. All right. I'll listen to you. Sect leader Sun said. Public opinion, reviews, popularity, in the end, what could be driven was direct profit. Now was a great opportunity to rope in sect leader. At this point in the celebration, the main event that everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The immortal warship that had been hovering in the air for a long time finally made a move. A golden beam of light shot down from the belly of the immortal warship. A lot of people discussed spiritedly below, guessing who on earth was inside the immortal warship. Could it be the sect leader of Immortal Palm Tree Sect? Someone guessed. As the only sky-level second-class sect at the moment, Immortal Palm Tree Sect didn't attend the celebration this time. Some people guessed that its sect leader might have been invited as a mystery guest. What kind of scene was the Office of Strategic Deception putting on this time? Although Immortal Palm Tree Sect had always been aloof, it wasn't to the extent that it wouldn't give them face. Amid the hubbub of voices below, a figure appeared in front of everyone in the golden light from the immortal warship. It was an old man in training clothes with a hedgehog hairstyle and a grizzled beard and hair. Some sect leaders in the northern square were already rubbing their eyes. Sword, Blade Master. Chapter 8:19. Blade Master Yi Jianchuan, one of the founding fathers of the nation, who had also become a Yuan Venerate, General Yi. He was one of the few people in the country who had been conferred the supreme title of King General. Together with the other 9 King Generals, they were collectively known as the 10 Generals. Furthermore, the title of Blade Master was the most resounding among the 10 Generals, because 100 years ago, there was a movie about the 10 Generals called Yuan Venerate Martial Arts, the Great Ruler of the Firmament, which was shot from General Yi's point of view. In the movie, General Yi's various famous Blade Master skills were highly reproduced, including the palm sword which he had used in his duel with the Old Devil. Even now, it was still unforgettable, but even though he was the most famous of the 10 Generals, General Yi usually kept a very low profile. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to attend a sect's founding celebration. However, when this old man in white exercise clothes appeared in front of everyone, the mouths of the sect leaders dropped open in astonishment and they were completely speechless. General Yi, how could it be? Lu Yuming, together with sect leader's son and the group of alliance members next to him, were stupefied. They had been guessing who the immortal warship was, but never had they expected that one of the 10 generals would actually show up, and the most famous of the 10 generals, Blade Master at that. Lu Yuming's legs turned to jelly and he almost fainted on the spot. As luck would have it, Professor Yang Bingchuan was next to him. Sect leader Lu, you don't look too good. I have low blood sugar. Lu Yuming didn't know what to say. At the same time, he gave sect leader's son a frantic look. He just wanted to know if it was too late to withdraw the magic array crystals that had been set up on the mountain. This was one of Huaxiu's 10 generals. Lu Yuming had to pay with his life to find someone he couldn't afford to offend. Sect leader Lu, it's actually not too late. There's still room for redemption. Yang Bingchuan patted Lu Yuming on the shoulder. He knew that this sect leader Lu was a conservative and not a bad person by nature. It was very normal for sects to compete with each other. Sect leader Lu has held a high position all these years, but you should always reflect on yourself. You mustn't let your desires swell because of a small amount of power in your hands, which goes against your original intentions. Professor Yang didn't say these words out loud. Instead, when he pressed down on Sect Master Lu's shoulder, he transmitted his voice to him. Professor Yang, once a person becomes arrogant, sometimes they don't even know who they are. I wonder if Sect leader Lu watches League of Legends? Sect leader Lu replied telepathically, sometimes. Professor Yang, back then, the little fatty who was appointed as the archer ended up ruining his future on the world stage. He thought that he could create a miracle with his own strength and lead an entire team. But what he didn't understand was that the alliance had never been a one-man game. What did they rely on to reach the top position? Was it his own strength and skills? Perhaps it was part of the reason. But obviously, that's not all. Lu Yuming was filled with regret. If this matter were to be exposed and he was to be blamed, it would not be something that could be explained away with just a few words. Sigh. He should have thought of this earlier. A sect that had just been established already had such a huge presence. Not only did it occupy an unprecedented area, it also had a group of expert bigwigs in various fields. Who else could it be as its backer? In the whole of Huaxiu Nation, wasn't it only Huaxiu Alliance that had this kind of ability? Professor Yang, please advise me. Lu Yuming knew that Yang Bingchuan might already be his last straw. Professor Yang smiled slightly. Sect leader Lu, you've been distracted. You probably lost something, right? Saying that, Professor Yang gave sect leader Lu a brocade pouch. Lu Yuming took it and looked inside, and was instantly so frightened that his hair stood on end. Inside this brocade pouch was none other than the transmission crystal that senior descendant of the Dragon clan had given them. When did Professor Yang? We already knew about it before sect leader Lu joined the Office of Strategic Deception. Lu Yuming was astonished once again. This Office of Strategic Deception's intelligence network was a little too powerful. This brocade pouch was lost by sect leader Lu. I've already ordered people to take it down and retrieve it one by one. Professor Yang chuckled. But I can't give it to you for free. I will never forget Professor Yang's great kindness in saving my life. If you have any requests, feel free to ask. Lu Yuming cupped his fists in a salute. If you want to thank someone, thank His Excellency Senior Immortal. This is all the chief's idea. Professor Yang waved his hand. But I do have a request. Furthermore, it's not for sect leader Lu, but for the Alliance. If you want to incorporate the Alliance, I will do my best to convince you. Sect leader Lu misunderstands. Our Office of Strategic Deception isn't so shameless as to use our weakness to force people to submit. We won't incorporate the Alliance, let alone force it to disband. Professor Yang shook his head and said, I only need sect leader Lu to promise the Office of Strategic Deception one thing. Professor Yang, go ahead. In the future, the Alliance can no longer maliciously restrict the ranks of sects, and must leave a chance for sects above 5th class. Even if they don't want to join the Alliance, you can't deliberately suppress them or suppress their ratings. Professor Yang said softly, peaceful development has always been the Office of Strategic Deception's main theme. I hope that the Alliance, as a major foundation for sky-level 5th class sects and above, can also shoulder this responsibility. Only when we prosper together can we achieve great things, right? Hearing this, Lu Yuming sighed with emotion. When all was said and done, this was the bearing of a large sect. I will remember. Of course, our Office of Strategic Deception also knows that the Alliance has always been doing this kind of business. We make a profit by collecting protection fees. If we can't do this in the future, the other sect leaders will definitely object. Yes, so, after this celebration, sect leader Lu can reconvene a meeting. You can clearly tell all the sect leaders that the Alliance will still exist in the future, but its nature will change to an organization that supports low-level sections. As long as the sect leaders of the Alliance agree to this condition, our Office of Strategic Deception can sign a contract as a guarantee. Within 5 years, each sect will be promoted by 1 level, and each year, we'll invest in each sect's businesses according to their legal operations. We'll invest in each sect's businesses. What the sect leaders of the Alliance have to do is very simple, and that is to advocate for our Office of Strategic Deception in the sect's conduct in the future. I don't think this will be difficult, right? Professor Yang said. It's not difficult, not difficult. Sect leader Lu hurriedly waved his hand. He knew that this was a great opportunity. And once again, he deeply felt that he had been stupid for opposing the Office of Strategic Deception back then. If he had known that the Office of Strategic Deception was so approachable, he wouldn't have done all that shit. With Professor Yang's guarantee, sect leader Lu's complexion improved a lot. He sighed with emotion. The Office of Strategic Deception is really amazing. Compared with them, our Alliance is like a little brother. They can even invite Blade Master to attend. Professor Yang laughed. Sect leader Lu, don't belittle yourself. After all, not all the special guests have appeared yet. Who else? Sect leader Lu was startled. There are 9 other people as awesome as General Yi, and they're all on the immortal warship. Chapter 820. Blade Master Yi Jianchuan was a general who had risen to fame in the Battle of Shermen before the founding of the nation, when he and Minister Shi of Huaxiu's Ministry of Defense had joined forces to slay the 7 demon gods. Now that they were looking at each other from afar, he still exuded a faint sense of majesty. This was the 10 generals. He didn't give off any spiritual pressure, but people couldn't help but feel a new sense of respect. At that moment, the hearts of almost everyone present couldn't stop beating. Huaxiu Nation might still have some unsatisfactory aspects, but it was constantly developing and improving every day. The current peaceful and prosperous era was the result of the lives of past cultivation martyrs who had risked their lives to fight for it. The immortal doctor who had saved the dying, the sailors who had gone against the flow, the police guarding the city, the sentries on the border. The moment General Yi appeared, everything flashed in front of everyone's eyes like a trotting horse lantern. General Yi has always kept a low profile. Why is he here this time? Lu Yuming asked telepathically. Sect leader Lu, it's completely out of the chief's face that he's attending this event. Keeping a low profile is reflected in all aspects, and needs to come from the heart. General Yi is indeed a general. Even if we cultivate for another 100 years, we still won't be able to catch up to this general's demeanor. Professor Yang smiled slightly and replied, does sect leader Lu remember General Yi's famous saying? Lu Yuming frowned and thought for a bit. Your sword is my sword? That's indeed what General Yi said. Professor Yang said, what sect leader Lu said is from General Yi's record of boundless sword Dao. This book describes General Yi's arduous experience in learning boundless sword Dao, so that later cultivators will be able to endure hardship and be more patient on the path of cultivation. But that's not what I wanted to say. Then, General Yi also said something else. Professor Yang said. A true master always has the heart of an apprentice. Lu Yoming's eyes widened as realization dawned on him. The Office of Strategic Deception's founding ceremony was probably a day that all the sect leaders and media reporters present would never forget. To everyone's surprise, Huaxiu's 10 generals actually appeared one after another after General Yi. 10 people in total, all of them were present. The sect masters of the sky-class sects were so shocked that they almost fell to the ground. All of this was too exaggerated and unbelievable. The 10 generals are all here? Big news. The reporters were excited. The flashing lights in the North Square didn't stop for a long time. Not long after the 10 generals appeared on the stage, the lift platform on the central stage rose again. Now, let us welcome the Chief of the General Office of Strategic Deception, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, with a warm round of applause. Accompanied by Teacher Wang's deep and magnetic voice, a man with long black hair and a long sword on his back, dressed in white ancient clothes, stepped onto the stage. At the same time, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, who had shone brilliantly in the arena, and a mysterious man dressed in armor appeared next to him. Who is this armored warrior? Some sect leaders didn't understand. But very quickly, someone guessed, this person might be the legendary Ling Jinren? Think about it. All these years, it's been widely rumored that this great death-courting senior is closest to someone, and who does he have the closest relationship with? Isn't it this Ling Jinren? Everyone nodded. That did seem to be the case. At this moment, at such a grand sect founding ceremony, all the group leaders of the Office of Strategic Deception are standing in the first row, and none of them are qualified to stand on the stage with Senior Immortal. This is even more proof that this Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch and Ling Jinren have an extraordinary relationship with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Below the stage, a big shot analyzed the situation forcefully. All these years, it's been widely rumored that Ling Jinren has helped grenade-throwing Senior Immortal deal with a lot of trouble. In my opinion, this might be a misunderstanding. Maybe Ling Jinren is just playing the role of a think tank. But the person who really did it was this Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. I see. Below the northern square, many sect leaders were discussing. For a moment, they were whispering to each other, and the discussion was very lively. At that moment, the 10 generals had already landed on the stage to congratulate grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Brother grenade-throwing. Congratulations. Brother grenade-throwing. Congratulations, congratulations. Brother grenade-throwing. Congratulations on the grand opening. Congratulations on the founding of the sect. In the end, as soon as the 10 generals spoke, the audience below the North Square instantly fell silent. Brother E, what are you saying? Sister Luo is also too polite. Everyone, please stand behind me first. Brother. Brother E? And, Sister Luo? One of the sect leaders almost spat out blood. What kind of intimate relationship was this? No wonder all the 10 generals had appeared. If they had known earlier, they would have built a good relationship with the cultivation forum earlier. This was a huge loss. Seeing that all the leaders were present, Wang Han said, next, let's welcome the chief to speak. Clap 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 clap, thunderous applause rang out below the North Square for a long time. Thank you, distinguished guests, sect leaders, and media for participating in our sect's founding ceremony. Today, our North Square is truly a sea of people, with gongs and drums ringing, firecrackers exploding, red flags fluttering in the wind. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said passionately, our General Office of Strategic Deception upholds the sect's spirit of accepting all rivers into the sea. It was established to support and realize some cultivators with dreams, as well as to maintain peace among sects and resolve conflicts. While grenade-throwing senior immortal was speaking, some online live streamers were also broadcasting the scene at the same time. Take Daoist Guang's live stream room as an example. It alone had already gathered nearly 50 million people. Since Daoist Guang had become an online celebrity, his number of fans had increased almost uncontrollably. Oh, that was right, Daoist Guang was now also a team leader of the Office of Strategic Deception's live streamer team. On the other side, Wang Zhen, who Immortal Toya had arranged to stay at Wei Ji's place for the time being, was also eating instant noodles with Wei Ji as he watched the live stream on an online platform. Just as grenade-throwing senior immortal said this, someone raised a question. On such a grand day, could senior immortal please have this brother in armor next to you take off his helmet? Of course. Grenade-throwing senior immortal quickly replied, let me make a grand introduction. This brother in armor is none other than my good brother, Ling Zhenren. This is my good brother, Ling Zhenren. Brother Ling. Please take off your helmet. Saying this, Wang Ling controlled his clone and slowly took off his helmet. At that moment, everyone, including the 10 generals, turned to look at this mysterious Ling Zhenren in the flesh. At the same time, Wang Zhen, who was watching TV with Wei Ji, directly spat out a mouthful of Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles, F***K. This person had actually imitated his face. Wang Zhen wasn't done being astonished. Chapter 821. The sect's founding celebration had already reached its climax. In the northern square, as grenade-throwing senior immortal announced in a loud voice, a total of 118 cannons were fired into the sky around the outer wall of the northern square. 118 was a heavenly Dao lucky number. Before the sect's founding ceremony, grenade-throwing senior immortal had specially asked Diviner Reed to do a divination. Diviner Reed had never made a mistake. Last time, he had helped grenade-throwing senior immortal predict a dead end, and in the end, he had indeed been killed by evil sword god. If it hadn't been for the soul suppression ring that Wang Ling had given him, grenade-throwing senior immortal's fate wouldn't have been as simple as leaving nothing behind, even his soul would have been completely shattered. So Diviner Reed's divination was indeed correct, but Wang Ling hadn't been included in this divination. After all, this contestant was a Heavenly Dao whitelist user. Even the Heavenly Dao had to give way to this baby. How could he be so easily divined? So after the incident with Evil Sword God, when Diviner Reed learned that grenade-throwing senior immortal was still alive, he thought that his divination had failed, and went into seclusion for a long time. Grenade-throwing senior immortal had personally paid a visit to the sect to divine this time's canon salute divination before the founding of the sect. And Diviner Reed had become the leader of the Office of Strategic Deception's divination team. The sect's founding celebration this time could be said to be very grand in the truest sense of the word. All the major sects and the media were celebrating, and the news of the Office of Strategic Deception's founding spread like wildfire online and offline. Especially after the 10 generals took the stage, the attitude among the light forces and sects instantly changed. Many of them hadn't been optimistic about the Office of Strategic Deception before, or had chosen to wait and see. Sects that didn't easily take sides chose to take the initiative to express goodwill. As a certain famous fried rice master had said, in the end, nothing could escape the law of true fragrance. Among them, Immortal Palm Tree sect's change was the most vigorous. It had received an invitation from the Office of Strategic Deception, and had even been given the highest level of guest treatment. After all, it was currently the only sky-level second-class sect. Immortal Palm Tree sect had also decided on its attitude toward the Office of Strategic Deception, a new force. How could it, a grand sky-level second-class sect, bow to a third-class sect and serve the rich and powerful? The Office of Strategic Deception had just been established, and a lot of sect matters weren't fully handled yet. Therefore, the Immortal Palm Tree sect's initial attitude was to ignore it. But like all the other sects, the head of Immortal Palm Tree sect also didn't expect that the people behind the Office of Strategic Deception would be the 10 generals. Thus, when the Immortal Palm Tree sect received the news, the entire sect was greatly shaken. Currently, the sect leader of the Immortal Palm Tree sect was called Sun Juolin. He was the acting sect leader hired by Huagua Water Curtain Group. Like the professional managers of many companies, he was in charge of the normal operations of the sect. Sun Juolin and the Huagua Water Curtain Group's Sun family were not actually related by blood. However, when he had signed the employment agreement, it had stipulated that he had to use the Sun family surname. Therefore, Juolin added the word Sun in front of his real name. Jorin was his real name. But this Jua had nothing to do with Jua's Jua family. It was also Sun Juolin who had personally signed off on the application of the indifferent strategy to the Office of Strategic Deception this time. In the end, after the 10 generals appeared, Sun Juolin was the first to panic when he heard the news. This was a very obvious strategic error. How could they afford to provoke a sect with the 10 generals behind them? In the sect leaders' conference room, Sun Juolin was restless. It wasn't until he saw his male secretary push open the door and come in that he hurriedly asked, "Have the congratulations been sent? I've already let the operations department handle it." The male secretary looked at his watch. At this time, they should have all been sent out. Our Immortal Palm Tree Sect's Weibo, WeChat official accounts, all the media operations matrix. They've all posted congratulatory posts. That's good. Sun Juolin exhaled, feeling a lot more relaxed. If he didn't handle this major strategic error properly, he wouldn't be able to explain himself once the higher-up of Huagua Water Curtain Group held him accountable. Although Immortal Palm Tree Sect was a sky-level second-class sect, if it fell short of success today because of his conceit, he wouldn't be able to atone for his crimes even if he was killed. What about the gifts? Have they been sent? Sun Juolin was still a little worried, and regretted his refusal. At the very least, he should have sent a deputy sect leader to check things out. I've already asked the Shun Phone God Express to speed up the transportation. It would probably take another half an hour. But Professor Yang of the Office of Strategic Deception's patrol team had already received the sect leader's kind intentions. It was just a pity that the sect leader hadn't arrived at the scene this time. I also followed sect leader's instructions and announced to the public that sect leader's leg was infected. There's no other way. Sun Juolin smiled bitterly. I can't say that I didn't go on purpose. I have to find an excuse. Yes. The male secretary nodded. But what? But the Office of Strategic Deception said, they'll have a live interaction with sect leader later, and the 10 generals will ask sect leader about his injury. Sun Juolin was shocked. The 10 generals personally asked. Sun Juolin gritted his teeth and immediately took out a jade pool mace from his storage bag and handed it to the male secretary. Sect leader, no. This matter must not be exposed. Sun Juolin sat on the ground and pointed at his legs. You, break all my legs. The male secretary, all of them, yes. Including the one in the middle. The male secretary was startled. There's no need, sect leader, this was a ruthless person. Sun Juolin, since we're putting on an act, we have to go all the way. In any case, given my realm, I can put them back in the future. Just make sure you're clean when you do it, and don't smash them into pieces. But the one in the middle is too, it doesn't matter. It's just 1 or 2 inches, it's not worth mentioning. On this side, just as the Immortal Palm Tree was displaying its extremely strong desire to survive. President Bai of Night Chief Zhong also received the latest news. It was intelligence from Long Ming. Lord Venerable, according to what the insects saw, the crystals set up by Lu Yoming's group have already been dismantled. Furthermore, Lu Yuming and the others have already officially confirmed their stance that they won't oppose the Office of Strategic Deception from now on. It's fine. President Bai smiled. I already knew this would happen, so the crystals I gave them were just a cover. I've already sent the current number 1 person in the dark network, and with the help of Lu Yoming's group's eyes and ears, this person has already successfully infiltrated the celebration this time. Number 1 in the dark network? Long Ming thought of one person. Could it be? Chapter 822. Ultimate King of Killers, who else in the dark network could match this name? Even the famous ghost head blade didn't have the right to carry his shoes. What was more, according to the official data released by Huaxiao Alliance, Ghost Head Blade was already confirmed dead. He had been locked up in the Dead Sea of space, and his blade body had long since corroded in the Dead Sea. He was already completely dead. President Bai also had some understanding of Ghost Head Blade's cultivation technique. Unlike him, Ghost Head Blade didn't have the possibility of resurrection by reversing two poles. Is that person going to come out of retirement? Long Ming's eyes narrowed. For some reason, when he mentioned this ultimate king of killers' name, he actually felt inexplicably excited. I'm afraid so, President Bai said. Back then, this ultimate king of killers had once led the faith of many dark sects in his most glorious days. His natural, wild, and unrestrained style won him a round of applause. Speaking of which, this ultimate king of killers also had a deep relationship with the 10 generals. Because back then, Ultimate King of Killers had been captured alive by General Yi, President Qi, an explosion saint before being sent to prison. Huaxiao Alliance's Sky Prison, this was an even more terrifying prison than Songhai First Prison. The entire prison was specially made of spirit shackles. The reason why the Old Devil and the others were currently in Songhai First Prison was because they were waiting for their trial. On the other hand, considering their previous performance in atoning for their crimes, they were given a reprieve. That was because 95% of the prisoners in Huaxiao Alliance's Sky Prison had been sentenced to death. Before Ultimate King of Killers, the biggest criminal to be locked up and sentenced to death was true immortal Shipai. In order to invite this person, I paid a huge price, but at least the outcome was worth it. Even if I didn't use the power of Outer Dao this time, I'm afraid that this Ultimate King of Killers alone would have caused a lot of chaos. President Bai looked confident that victory was in his grasp. He had a lot of confidence in Ultimate King of Killers. After all, this was the most dangerous person to appear in Huaxiao Alliance's Sky Prison after true immortal Shipai back then. As for this Ultimate Killer King, he created a new record. He was the only person to escape from the Sky Prison. Furthermore, he had yet to be caught, and the bounty on his head was 500 million immortal gold. At this moment, the sound of cannons in the sky above the northern square was unceasing. Even the air was filled with the unique smell of fireworks. It wasn't suffocating, but at this moment, everyone seemed to be immersed in the atmosphere of the new year. However, there seemed to be a faint killing intent in the air. It was an indistinct scent that was not clear. But after all, Wang Ling had 2 clones here. This was an absolute expert. In terms of hiding his murderous aura alone, Wang Ling thought that he could surpass more than half of the 10 generals. Among the 10 generals, only the Shadow Saint was skilled in assassination techniques and aura concealment. But at this moment, the Shadow Saint did not seem to sense the danger below. This was a great enemy who was in the dark and didn't know what was going on. Even the Office of Strategic Deception hadn't foreseen the danger. But at the moment, whether it was Ling Jinren or Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, these 2 clones couldn't make a move at will. That would cause chaos on the scene. The ideal situation would be to ferret out this hidden troublemaker by himself. While Wang Ling was thinking this, the sound of the cannons rang out, and as the heavenly Dao fireworks finished blooming, a terrifying murderous aura instantly roared out from the crowd. This was a power that smelled of annihilation. One person's murderous aura could actually rival that of a magnificent army. This was the aura that only a psychopathic homicidal maniac who indulged in a sea of blood and slaughter all year round could release. This murderous aura instantly made the sect leaders present involuntarily raise their guards, and they joined hands to set up a barrier as they retreated. Who was it? The sect leaders present, as well as the media reporters, were so startled by this immense murderous aura that their hair stood on end. This murderous aura successfully cleared a path through the bustling crowd in the northern square. The sect leaders retreated to the sides, and no one dared to rashly make a move. Sect leader Lu wanted to step forward, but Professor Yang firmly held him down. Sect leader Lu, don't go, you're just throwing your life away. Everyone here had already felt the strength of the newcomer. It was only at that moment that they could clearly see the source of this murderous aura. This was an ordinary-looking old man with a fist-sized sarcoma on his chin. The skin on his face was very rough, and his deeply sunken eye sockets were like those of a ghost, giving people the creeps. The old man was wearing a pair of wooden clogs as he walked forward step by step. I'm really not used to wearing these Taoist robes, they're simply a burden. He had directly stripped off his Taoist robes to reveal a white undershirt underneath. It was very obvious that this person. Most of the people present had some impression of him, and when some of the older sect leaders saw this, their expressions changed dramatically. How could it be him? My apologies, cough cough, I've disturbed everyone's mood. But I'm only here today to seek revenge, and I'm not interested in killing anyone else. The old man narrowed his eyes as he stared at the front of the stage. After all, I have a lot of opponents this time, and I need to conserve some strength. General E stood up and hovered in the air as he stared down at the old man and snorted. I was wondering who it was. With such a fierce aura, it turns out that it's Ultimate King of Killers from back then. But I think your excellency must have been instructed to come here today, and you must have come prepared. I haven't seen you in so many years, but it seems that the 10 generals haven't changed at all. Unfortunately, I'm getting older and older. Ultimate King of Killers sighed, a weary look on his face. He was the first person to escape Huaxiao Alliance's Sky Prison, and no one could imagine what kind of price he had paid. Any cultivator who entered Huaxiao Alliance's Sky Prison would have their spirit energy completely restricted, and they wouldn't be able to use it at all, but this Ultimate King of Killers had escaped from it. Although General E was mocking him, the 10 generals were well aware at that moment that they couldn't underestimate this person. It was clear that the other party hadn't just been instructed to come here, he had also come prepared. Ultimate King of Killers, what brings you to my office of strategic deception today? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. You're grenade-throwing Senior Immortal? The old man smiled. You seem a lot weaker than I imagined. But when all is said and done, you can't judge a book by its cover. If we fight later, I'll be the first to get rid of you. To catch a thief, first catch the king. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was very calm. Ultimate King of Killers, you sure talk big. Chapter 823. This was a difficult opponent. In terms of battle strength alone, Wang Ling judged that this person should be on par with Evil Sword God. It was just that the current situation was a little tricky, because it wasn't Wang Ling himself who was present, but Ling Jinren and Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, these two clones with spiritual intelligence. In terms of individual combat ability, a clone's battle strength was, in the end, limited. Furthermore, it was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal who had set up this situation to help Wang Ling divert attention from Ling Jinren and counterbalance his attraction to the outside world. So in this situation, Wang Ling couldn't let these two clones easily crush the other side, otherwise this plan would have been in vain. What was more, the 10 generals had already set their new target on grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Wang Ling felt that he could make good use of this. So the main character in today's battle definitely couldn't be him or these two clones, it had to revolve around grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the 10 generals. While Wang Ling was analyzing the situation through the two clones present, the atmosphere had already frozen to the extreme. An extremely powerful killing intent spread through the air, so cold that people couldn't help shivering all over. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal noticed that a layer of frost had already started to form on the ground. None of you here are my match. Ultimate King of Killers sneered, extremely confident in himself. Back then, when you captured me and threw me into prison, you didn't execute me in time. That was your biggest mistake. Now that I've escaped from prison, even this cell made of the same material as the spirit shackles can't hold me. What can you do to me? As soon as he said this, Ultimate King of Killers' words immediately caused a heated discussion among the sect leaders and the media. Many of the Sky-level sect leaders sensed that something wasn't right. Given Ultimate King of Killers' character, if he sneaks into the scene, he'll definitely start a massacre and leave no one alive. But this time, the Ultimate King of Killers' target seems to be very clear. Guild leader Lu's voice deepened. Ultimate King of Killers deliberately left us and the media behind, and chose to appear today. I'm afraid he already knew that the 10 generals would be here in person. Professor Yang sighed. The 10 generals absolutely couldn't let down their guard in this battle. Ultimate King of Killers had deliberately chosen the day of the Office of Strategic Deception's founding ceremony because it was the most lively day. After all, more than 70% of the sect leaders and people in charge of the entire sect circle were currently gathered in the northern square, as well as the authoritative media at the scene. Ultimate King of Killers was going to do something big in front of these people. It wasn't as simple as disrupting the ceremony. He wanted to embarrass the 10 generals in front of everyone. In theory, the Ultimate Killer King only needed to defeat one of the 10 generals to achieve his goal. But the current situation, evidently, the Killer King came prepared and had the confidence to fight against the 10 generals alone. Ultimate King of Killers, you've been on the run for many years, causing the people of Huaxiao Nation to panic. Today, this old man will be the first to directly dispose of you. General Yi stepped forward. General of Ling to of General of Spirits. Of the intent, of General of Ling of the King of the King, he had directly opened the spirit field of the Ling. This was the spatial stratification effect of the intrinsic spirit field. General Yi had directly pulled King of Killers into his own intrinsic spirit field. Logically speaking, when fighting in an intrinsic spirit field, the side who used the intrinsic spirit field first and pulled the enemy into it would definitely have the upper hand. This was because the intrinsic spirit field itself could only boost the battle strength of the spirit field's creator. Furthermore, when fighting in an intrinsic spirit field, any spell used by an outsider would continuously consume spirit energy until it was completely exhausted. But seeing General Yi's move, the other 10 generals still had grave expressions on their faces. Old Yi is too impulsive. Battle Saint Marshal Jiang frowned deeply. His original plan had been to suppress the other people first before making a move to ensure the safety of the venue. There was something fishy about this King of Killers, and a direct one-on-one fight would instead be a disadvantageous variable. Given Old Yi's experience and skills, even if there's something fishy about this person, he probably won't fall into a trap. Let's wait and see first. With me here, nothing will happen to Old Yi, said Luo Huaiqiu. Because the fight was taking place in the intrinsic spirit field, no one knew what on earth was going on inside. But contrary to everyone's expectations, the fight ended unexpectedly quickly. In less than 3 minutes, General Yi and King of Killers reappeared on the scene. The Killer King knelt on one knee as he coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. A fist-sized hole could be seen in his chest. His white robes were stained with blood as it flowed to the ground, staining the wooden clogs of the Killer King. "Heh, that's all there is to it." General Yi shook his hand, and it instantly dispersed. General Yi wasn't wielding a sword, but a gas-like substance materialized in the palm of his hand. It was faintly discernible, but it was sharp and gave off a chilling pressure. Palm sword combined with boundless sword Dao. President Qi raised his eyebrows. He sighed in his heart. This King of Killers was indeed powerful. He had actually forced a Grand Blade Master to use this combination technique right from the start. Palm sword was the technique that made General Yi famous. The boundless sword Dao was even more so General Yi's famed special skill. The combination of the two was no different from a big move. My boundless sword Qi has already sealed off your spirit meridians and destroyed your spirit body. You won't live for long. General Yi pinched his mustache as he stared at King of Killers, who was half kneeling on the ground and vomiting blood. What a pity, he might have some other value on him. Explosion Saint shook his head. Given King of Killers' injuries, it would really be hard for him to survive. But General Yi didn't have any problems with killing him on the spot this time. Originally, according to Huaxiao Nation's regulations on managing wanted criminals, King of Killers could be killed on the spot if they refused to surrender. What was more, King of Killers' current position was already a serious threat to the lives of the masses. Hence, Ultimate King of Killers had to die. Dozens of seconds later, as General Yi had said, Ultimate King of Killers directly collapsed to the ground. His whole body was bleeding. The boundless sword Qi had wreaked havoc in this Ultimate King of Killers' body, causing it to look like a balloon full of holes as blood leaked out everywhere. Ultimate King of Killers had actually been dealt with in an instant. Countless people at the scene sucked in cold breaths of air. A lot of people didn't know what on earth had happened in the intrinsic spirit field. However, the fact that the trouble was solved so cleanly and neatly made many people feel proud and elated. It could only be said that as expected of Boundless Sword Saint. Truly a treasured sword that never grew old. Just in case, I'll go and finish him off. General E narrowed his eyes as he stared at King of Killer's corpse on the ground, which seemed to be dead through and through. Finishing off after a battle was always a good habit. Especially when it came to this kind of criminal who had to die. Even though he was now retired, General E still maintained his former vigilance and carefulness. But just as General E approached King of Killer's corpse and was about to finish him off, on the ground, Ultimate King of Killer's corpse actually instantly turned into a wisp of black chi which entered General Yi's body. Old E, you, almost in an instant, General Yi's eyes turned black, and his body was no longer floating in the air, but firmly planted on the ground. Chapter 824. General E had been restrained, which was a surprise to everyone at the scene. That's impossible. Battle Saint Marshal Jiang shook his head. Blade Master cultivates boundless sword Dao all year round, and his sword heart is clear. It's impossible for an external object to invade him. Marshal Jiang couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. Among the 10 generals, who knew Blade Master the best? As an enemy who had sparred with General E all year round, Marshal Jiang believed that his familiarity and understanding of General E was second only to his understanding of himself. The conditions for cultivating boundless sword Dao were very harsh, and one couldn't have the slightest bit of evil thoughts. In order to cultivate boundless sword Dao back then, General E had suffered a lot. To be able to endure what ordinary people couldn't, this was the demeanor of a general. Battle Saint, the facts are already in front of us, there's no point in denying it. Explosion Saint frowned. This King of Killers is a little strange. I think that when you fight him, remember not to get close to him. It should be safer to use a long-range attack. Sister Luo, can you tell what spell this King of Killers is using? Marshal Jiang frowned deeply and finally asked in a low voice. In fact, the moment Medicine Saint saw General E being controlled, he had already used the mind-clearing spell, but unfortunately, it had no effect. The moment Oldie was controlled, I used the level 7 mind-clearing spell in an attempt to purify his abnormal state, but the spell wasn't very effective, Medicine Saint said. I can only conclude now that this isn't an abnormal spell. The 10 generals' faces turned a little unsightly. All sorts of unreasonable facts told them that this Ultimate King of Killers indeed wasn't simple. Ultimate King of Killers, did you deliberately choose today to take revenge for being imprisoned in the Sky Prison in front of these sect leaders and the media? I've waited a long time for this day. King of Killers' voice sounded a little out of place as it came from General Yi's body. Your plan hasn't succeeded. President Chi stepped forward and said, the moment you attacked Old E, I used the brain deduction technique to brainwash everyone behind you. Now, they'll see you vomiting blood as Old E punches you out of your intrinsic spirit field, and this image will play in their minds in a constant brainwashing loop. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, Wang Ling, President Chi's words caused King of Killers' pupils to contract slightly, and then he sneered. As expected of Wisdom Saint, apart from Old E, you were also a good facilitator when I was locked up in the heavenly prison back then. After speaking until here, the Killer King waved his hand. However, it doesn't matter. I remember that your brain deduction technique will be interrupted as long as your body is seriously injured or dead. So today, none of you will be able to escape. All of you will die. However, before I make my move, I have something to remind everyone. The 10 generals' expressions froze when they heard that. Ultimate King of Killers said expressionlessly, I am currently borrowing General Yi's body. Everyone attacking me is the same as attacking General Yi. Killer King, this move of yours is too despicable. The Marshal Saint was infuriated. The victor is the king. Everything else is nonsense. The Ultimate Killer King laughed. Taking a deep breath, Battle Saint stared at King of Killers with blazing eyes, clearly enraged. Even if Old E falls for it, we 10 generals aren't to be trifled with, we are the elites of Huaxiu Nation. Elites? The Ultimate Killer King grinned maliciously. The ones I'm fighting are the elites. As soon as he said that, he opened his hand, and the air in front of him instantly distorted. In an instant, he controlled General Yi's figure to disappear along with Marshal Jiang. What kind of spell is this? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was already completely stupefied. That move just now was clearly General Yi's intrinsic spirit field, and the ultimate killer king of killers was actually able to use General Yi's spell while borrowing a body. Brother Ling, what should we do? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal turned his head to look at Ling Junren on his left, and then at Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch on his right as he asked telepathically. This king of killers had come too strangely. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't think of anyone else who could control the entire situation except Wang Ling. The truth was that Wang Ling already knew about the king of killers spell, it was just that he couldn't say it out loud. This wasn't an ordinary body-borrowing spell, because it was an abnormal spell that could be neutralized by the mind-clearing spell. What Ultimate Killer King of Killers had used was a more powerful special spell called the Anti-Last Hit spell, which was based on the body-borrowing spell. What had really caused General Yi to fall wasn't his terrifying attack, but the last hit. This was a spell that could be used in a near-death state to counterattack. When the caster was on the verge of death, as long as they sensed the malice of the last hit, they could temporarily devour the soul of the person who struck them, and thus borrow a body. So, when all was said and done, this anti-last hit spell was just a slightly more advanced possession technique. Because it was a relatively unpopular spell, very few people knew about it. But coincidentally, Wang Ling also knew how to use it. Furthermore, Wang Ling's possession technique was fancy, he could possess whoever he wanted, and there was no need to go through so much trouble. Thus, in the next moment, Wang Ling controlled Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's clone to place his hand on Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's shoulder. Using a clone to transfer a soul to a body wasn't a particularly difficult technique to use. Although he was still in the middle of a class, today was the sect's founding ceremony. Since someone had come to make trouble, as the head of Crispy Noodles Hall, as the head of Leisure Hall, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal should do his part. In any case, it would only take 2 minutes to end the fight. A few seconds later, when Wang Ling's soul successfully transferred into Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's aura changed dramatically. Being possessed was a very wonderful feeling. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal remembered that the last time he had been possessed was when he had been dealing with Evil Sword God. Back then, he had been possessed by Lord Jinka. And now, he was being attacked by his best brother. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt so blessed. When the 10 generals sensed the change in Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's aura, they were all greatly shocked. Who would have thought that everything would turn out to be true? It turned out that this great death-courting senior really was a hidden expert. There was no need for words to explain everything. I'll be right back. After Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Wang Ling merged, it was still Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's voice, but Wang Ling was already the master of the body. Under everyone's stupefied gazes, they saw this deeply hidden great death-courting senior directly tear open the space in front of him with a wave of his hand, and step into the intrinsic spirit field which King of Killers had taken over Wang Ling's body. At that moment, Marshal Jiang was already engaged in a bitter battle in the intrinsic spirit field. Chapter 825. This was Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's second time being possessed by a big shot. Although he felt a little nauseous overall as a result of the rejection between the soul and the body, it was basically still within his tolerance range. There was a limit to how long a person could possess a body. It was like holding one's breath in water. Once the limit was reached, the soul and the body would automatically separate. Usually, the longest time a person could possess a body was 5 minutes. This was very different from the Ultimate Killer King's body borrowing technique. The essence of body borrowing was a high-level movement technique. It wasn't bound by time. But for Wang Ling, it didn't make a difference whether he had 5 minutes or not. In any case, this battle would end in less than 3 minutes. When Wang Ling succeeded in possessing a body, he used Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body to tear open the space and step onto the battlefield. He saw a sword light slash down like a blazing sun, overbearing and imposing with boundless might that no one could look directly at. In all the martial arts in the world, only speed was unbeatable. This was especially true of this sword technique which contained the profound meaning of boundless sword Dao. Any demon or evil spirit would be scared out of their wits by this sword. Although grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body was under Wang Ling's control, he could clearly see what was happening in front of him. This was a showdown between true immortals. If it wasn't for Wang Ling controlling his body, a mere soul formation cultivator like him wouldn't have been able to stand his ground at all. What kind of powerful technique was this? The scene in front of him was even more shocking than when he had fought Evil Sword God back then. Because when he had fought Evil Sword God back then, it had been a pure one-sided defeat. But now, it was a showdown between a blade master and a warrior saint. Although King of Killers had manipulated this showdown and they had been forced to fight, it was still extremely shocking. In the face of the monstrous boundless sword intent, Marshal Jiang frowned and reacted almost instantly. He placed his thumbs in his mouth and bit down hard. In the next moment, his arms actually expanded explosively, becoming hundreds of times larger. They were like two pieces of divine metal that came from the heavens, and even his skin turned a deep and dazzling black. He controlled his arms to cross them in front of him, and the boundless sword intent slashed down on his strengthened arms with a heavy sound like divine iron striking each other. The ground cracked as the boundless sword intent and Marshal Jiang's arms collided with a scorching energy that instantly incinerated the ground and turned it into blazing magma. Marshal Jiang no longer had a foothold, so he could only float in the air and fight. And this was the most dangerous moment. General Yi's intrinsic spirit field could transform everything in it into sword intent. Battle Saint, you've fallen into my trap. King of Killers smiled slightly as he manipulated General Yi's body to activate the boundless sword intent. With just a crook of his finger, the blazing magma on the ground instantly transformed into millions of fire swords that shot toward Marshal Jiang. He didn't hold back at all. This was a method to put Marshal Jiang to death. Clearly, Marshal Jiang had also noticed the cruelty of this ultimate killer king. Because of the fact that the Sword Saint was being possessed, he had been forced to defend himself and did not dare to attack directly. However, the current situation made him feel that the possession technique was strange. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that after being possessed by the Sword Saint, the power he could exert was much stronger than before. Among the 10 generals, he had the most opportunities to fight with the Sword Saint, so he should know the Sword Saint's situation like the back of his hand. At that moment, millions of fire swords attacked him, each one aimed at his heart. Marshal Jiang waved his godly arms to stop them, but these fire swords were too nimble. Brother Ling, it's time. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal urged Wang Ling. Marshal Jiang's current situation was really too dangerous. Wang Ling just gave a light answer. He took a step forward. There was a thunderous rumble as several bolts of heavenly lightning directly smashed the millions of fire swords to pieces, forcing Marshal Jiang and King of Killers to look in the direction of the sound of the thunder. It wasn't just Marshal Jiang, even Ultimate King of Killers was extremely astonished. Because they hadn't sensed that someone else had actually appeared in the intrinsic spirit field. Senior Immortal, when did you come in? Not long ago, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said. In fact, it was Wang Ling who was speaking. He was currently in control of the body, but the voice was still Grenade-throwing Senior Immortals, so Marshal Jiang and Ultimate King of Killers didn't suspect anything. Wang Ling didn't like to talk at first, but considering that he was now pretending to be Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and that he was in the latter's body to act cool, he still had to play along, otherwise it wouldn't have any effect. It was clear that Marshal Jiang and Ultimate King of Killers were stupefied by Wang Ling's words. He had come in not long ago, they hadn't sensed him at all. And most importantly, after Marshal Jiang had been sucked into the intrinsic spirit field, this grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had come in again? How was that possible? How did Senior Immortal come in? Marshal Jiang was utterly stupefied. Is it very difficult to tear space with your hands? Wang Ling manipulated grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body and tilted his neck. Hearing this, Ultimate King of Killers and Marshal Jiang sucked in cold breaths of air. Tearing space with his hands, easy to say. But the technical difficulty of this thing was quite high. Furthermore, tearing space wasn't an ordinary space, and most true immortals had the ability to tear space to travel through it. But tearing space to enter an alternate space was different. It was on a completely different level of difficulty. It's so hot. Grenade-throwing senior immortal looked at the ground. Because the collision of two true immortals had turned the ground of the intrinsic spirit field into magma, he really did feel a little hot. You should be feeling hot too, right? Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked as he looked at Marshal Jiang next to him. Marshal Jiang nodded. A little, but at true immortal level, I'm very resistant to heat. Although I'm sweating, I won't feel very hot. Since it's hot, don't make a big fuss. Isn't it better to fight like a Buddha? Wang Ling was doing his best to speak in a tone that grenade-throwing senior immortal was familiar with to avoid arousing suspicion. Marshal Jiang was taken aback by this question. You're right, immortal, I saw that you were fighting for so long without any results, so I came in to take a look. Anyway, thank you, senior immortal. You've been a great help. You and I will fight together, you just need to restrain old Yi's body and leave the rest to me. Too troublesome. Grenade-throwing senior immortal shook his head. Marshal Jiang, then senior immortal means, at that moment, grenade-throwing senior immortal fixed his gaze on the ground and sighed softly. It was just a sigh, but the magma on the ground actually froze in an instant. While Marshal Jiang and King of Killers were still in a daze, grenade-throwing senior immortal had already appeared in front of King of Killers at some point. Hey, where are you looking at? He was really too fast. Before King of Killers could come back to his senses, grenade-throwing senior immortal had already flicked him on the forehead. Pa! There was a crisp sound, and General Yi's body flew out like a meteor, piercing through several giant mountains in a row. In his own body, grenade-throwing senior immortal let Wang Ling do as he pleased. He felt that he had really learned something. It turned out that acting cool was also a huge field of study. If he had gone into battle himself, he definitely wouldn't have felt this way. As expected of his dearest brother Ling. Brother Ling, you're so cool. Grenade-throwing senior immortal kept cheering for Wang Ling in his body. Please use my body to your heart's content, brother Ling. Don't pity me just because I'm a broccoli. Chapter 826. It was always difficult for people to believe in things that were beyond their understanding, and more often than not, they would rather believe in things that were within their abilities. So when King of Killers got up from the ground, he was in a bad mood. Grenade-throwing senior immortal's sudden appearance and his strength, which was so strong that it couldn't be described in words, had already far exceeded his expectations. It was just a light flick, but he had actually pierced through more than 10 small mountains in a flash. Marshal Jiang also felt that this scene was inconceivable. At that moment, Marshal Jiang took a deep breath. Based on their discussion on the immortal warship earlier, he had deduced that this grenade-throwing senior immortal wasn't a simple person, but when he saw his explosive strength with his own eyes, this renowned battle saint couldn't help trembling. If it wasn't for Ultimate King of Killers, the 10 generals might not even know what kind of player this was. But at the same time, Marshal Jiang was also puzzled. Logically speaking, grenade-throwing senior immortal had already hidden his strength very well. Then, why had he chosen to lay his cards on the table in front of everyone on an occasion like today? Of course, maybe the situation wasn't as complicated as Marshal Jiang thought. Today was the Office of Strategic Deception's sect celebration. Someone had come to cause trouble, so it was reasonable for the sect leader to make a move. This was Marshal Jiang's explanation. Ultimate King of Killers admitted that he had never been in such a sorry state before. After piercing through a series of mountains, he landed heavily on the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. When he stood up, he could even feel his legs trembling uncontrollably. It had to be said that this was Blade Master's body. Even if he hadn't deliberately set up a barrier to protect himself, he still had invisible protective sword chi around him. Logically speaking, if he had just hit the ground, he shouldn't have felt any pain. But that flick just now had hit his soul. Blade Master's body looked unscathed, but Ultimate King of Killers felt like he was about to lose his life. When Ultimate King of Killers raised his head, the devil-like figure appeared in front of him again, startling him so much that he broke out in a cold sweat. Do you want to continue? Grenade-throwing senior immortal said lightly. He hadn't seen the movement at all, and that flick on the forehead earlier was also. Ultimate King of Killers seriously suspected that he might be blind. As someone who came from the King of Killers and was ranked #1 in the Dark Network, it was impossible for him to not know such a simple ocular technique like motion capture. But as it turned out, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's movements were simply too fast. He was simply too fast for Wang Ling's eyes to take in. The Ultimate Killer King couldn't help but admit that out of all the opponents he had encountered so far, this was the strangest fellow. This grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's aura just now was clearly at the soul formation stage. It absolutely couldn't be fake. But all of a sudden, it was as if he had become another person. So, he had been concealing his strength on purpose. During these years as the Killer King, he had seen too many experts. Whether someone was intentionally hiding their strength or not, the Ultimate Killer King could tell with a single glance. As the Ultimate King of Killers, this was a special ability that he was born with. In the pugilistic world, knowing yourself and your enemy was the key to victory. In order to prepare for today's revenge plan, he had not hesitated to cooperate with Night Chief. Dealing with the 10 generals and humiliating them one by one was something he was extremely confident about. He was the Ultimate Killer King. He would never do a losing business, nor would he make a plan without preparation. But he never expected that this chief of the Office of Strategic Deception, the pugilistic world's great death-courting senior, would actually become an invisible variable. Do you want to continue? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked again. Interesting, really interesting. It's been a long time since I've met such an interesting person. The Killer King laughed maniacally. At the same time, he already had a countermeasure in his heart. Right now, the first thing he needed to do was to restrict his opponent's movements. The Killer King felt that the reason he lost was because he couldn't see his opponent's movements clearly. Since the other party's strength lay in speed, there was no need to fight him head-on. Just put some distance between them and restrict their attacks. This was a standard battle strategy. Ultimate King of Killers had experienced countless battles, and was able to adapt quickly based on what happened in different battles. He had experience that a lot of people didn't have. This was also why it had been so difficult to catch him back then. Ultimate King of Killers had once held a position in Magnificent Immortal, and during that time, he had developed a powerful anti-reconnaissance ability. Actually, Ultimate King of Killers also had a nickname, the Shame of Magnificent Immortal. Wang Ling stared at Ultimate King of Killers calmly. He still had plenty of time. It had actually only taken him 30 seconds from entering the arena to flicking the other party's forehead. At that moment, Ultimate King of Killers used his intrinsic spirit field to pull away as much as he could. At the same time, Wang Ling suddenly felt an extra pressure on his shoulders. Gravity control. Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. It was very obvious that Ultimate King of Killers wanted to restrict his movements. Unfortunately, this gravitational force had no effect on him. As for the Ultimate Killer King, he had no idea what sort of opponent he was facing exactly. After pulling away, he stood in the air and continuously added additional effects to himself. Boundless Sword Dao, 8-foot sword circle. Boundless Sword Dao, sword power amplification. Boundless Sword Dao, blade amplification. Boundless Sword Dao, sword chi backlash. Boundless Sword Dao, anti-demon stance. Boundless Sword Dao, invincible sword chi. In a short dozen or so seconds, Ultimate King of Killers borrowed General Yi's body to do whatever he wanted, adding more than a dozen amplification effects to himself. These were all powers derived from Boundless Sword Dao, and Wang Ling was a little apprehensive at the sight of them. It wasn't because he was afraid, but because these amplification sword chi densely surrounded Ultimate King of Killers like a spiderweb, and Wang Ling's trypophobia was about to flare up. With so many buffs, is this your final struggle? I've underestimated you before. But don't blame me if you die in the next wave of attacks. I am Ultimate King of Killers, and I never kill nameless people, Ultimate King of Killers said in a low voice. Ultimate King of Killers didn't hold back anymore. He had originally wanted to slowly torture Battle Saint to death in this intrinsic spirit field, but he never expected such a variable to appear. If this battle dragged on any longer, it would only be disadvantageous to him. Initially, his target for revenge had only been the 10 generals, and he had only promised Night Chief to get rid of this chief of the Office of Strategic Deception in passing. In other words, he could have given this great death-courting senior a quick death. But now, Ultimate King of Killers swore that if he won this battle, he would leave this chief of strategic deception alive, and then torture him for 81 days with everything he had learned about killing. I'm going to torture you to death. King of Killers still slashed out with all his might. The blade of his sword instantly expanded as it slashed through the air, forming a sword pillar that connected the sky as it shot forward with unstoppable force. The momentum of this sword strike was tremendous, however, Wang Ling just sighed. It was just a sigh, but with Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body as the center, an exceptionally purifying sound wave spread out in all directions like the cries of millions of birds, making one's scalp go numb. All of the attacks instantly turned into a stream of air and dissipated without a trace. Even the dozen or so amplification sword chi around King of Killers disappeared in that instant. This is, Battle Saint and King of Killers were dumbfounded. It's just the effect of observation hockey combined with abnormal sound waves. Borrowing Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body, Wang Ling replied, I call it the abnormal sound wave observation spell. Marshal Jiang, King of Killers, your turn is over, shouldn't it be my turn? The next second, Wang Ling's eyes were fixed on King of Killers. Chapter 827. At that moment, the look in Wang Ling's eyes was already different from before, because he didn't have much time left. He had paused for a bit to see what else this legendary ultimate King of Killers could do, but in the end, he was greatly disappointed. The number one of the Dark Network was only at this level. This look caused Ultimate King of Killers' spirit to instantly collapse to the extreme. Judging from that finger flick at the very beginning, the other party seemed to have a way to directly suppress the soul without harming the body. To be able to use such a method, how could such a person be an ordinary person? Moreover, it wasn't difficult for the Ultimate King of Killers to determine that the other party had already seen through the technique he was using to borrow a body. The counter last hit was a forbidden technique that was widely known in the Western world's dark web. In the Western world, there was an ancient book that recorded all forbidden techniques called the Bible of Darkness. Back then, in order to obtain this technique, the Ultimate King of Killers had paid a huge price. The anti-last hit spell was one of the forbidden spells in the Dark Bible. Of course, under normal circumstances, only those who had read the Bible of Darkness would understand this spell. As expected, this Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was a man of substance, but there was already no point in thinking about this in his mind. Ultimate King of Killers knew that this was a battle he had to face. And in order to face this battle, the first thing he had to do was to, first, he had to circulate his chi and dry the underwear this damn body was wearing. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had just glanced at him, and he was instantly drenched in cold sweat. His clothes were sticking to his skin, which made Ultimate King of Killers very uncomfortable. For Ultimate King of Killers, killing was an art. Since it was an art, he had to carry out every killing job with sincerity and beauty. Thus, Ultimate King of Killers started to build up chi. Scorching hot true immortal chi was released from his body, and for a moment, it made a sizzling sound like an electric iron sweeping over a hot plate. However, Wang Ling already couldn't wait. He didn't know what this Ultimate King of Killers was doing, and he wasn't interested in waiting for the other party to finish. For Wang Ling, resolving the battle in front of him was his top priority. The next second, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's figure flashed, and he actually directly disappeared. Then, he reappeared on the horizon and turned into a fiery meteor as he charged in Ultimate King of Killers' direction. The strong wind pressure instantly covered the entire land. This was clearly the home field of General Yi's intrinsic spirit field, but at that moment, Wang Ling had directly turned the tables on him. The sudden action caused the Ultimate Killer King to be caught unprepared. His underwear hadn't been dried yet. This was not beautiful at all. On the horizon, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal turned into a meteor and fell. It was like a nuclear bomb had landed on the ground. The wind pressure directly caused the Ultimate Killer King's neck to bend. After that, he couldn't even open his eyes. His entire person was like a toad suppressed by the Buddha's palm, lying on the ground. Marshal Jiang exclaimed in amazement. What kind of precise attack technique was this? It was clearly a large-scale AoE attack, but Marshal Jiang didn't feel any pressure at all other than the power of the wind. This was enough to prove that when grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had cast the spell, he had already launched a targeted attack, and had poured all the pressure into Ultimate Killer King of Killers. Ultimate Killer King of Killers was completely powerless to resist this enormous pressure. He could only lie on the ground, tilt his neck slightly, and squint his eyes to barely see this shocking scene in the sky, which was like an epic divine punishment descending. It was clearly just a person, but in his eyes, this person was like a planet about to hit the earth. As the other party fell, the space behind him actually cracked inch by inch, and a long and narrow hole appeared, pressing straight in his direction. I never thought I, Ultimate Killer King of Killers, would die here. In that instant, Ultimate Killer King of Killers' mind was already spinning as he recalled his previous body. He was certain that this grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was going to destroy him along with General Yi's body. Such a powerful move was about to hit him, and it would probably be too late to withdraw it. Ultimate Killer King of Killers sneered cruelly. If he withdrew from General Yi's body at this time and let General Yi experience death for himself, what would happen? A few seconds later, everyone waiting anxiously in the outside world saw grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Marshal Jiang, and General Yi walk out of the intrinsic spirit field unscathed. While Ultimate Killer King of Killers had possessed General Yi, his soul had been imprisoned. He couldn't control his body, but he could clearly see what was happening in the outside world. When he had seen grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's palm strike, he had thought he was going to die. What was even more hateful was that at the last moment, Ultimate Killer King of Killers had chosen to return to his original body, voluntarily giving up his body to General Yi. Thus, the instant General Yi's underwear returned to his body, he was scared out of his wits, but overall, the ending could be considered satisfactory. In the end, Wang Ling had taken control of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body and used that move, which looked like he was going all out to kill King of Killers, was actually to force Ultimate Killer King of Killers to back off and give up his body position, abbreviated, body position. Hence, from the very beginning, Wang Ling had been forcing grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body, and hadn't planned to land at all. The instant before the blow was about to land, Wang Ling had withdrawn all his strength. It could be said that everything had been within Wang Ling's calculations. That's impossible. On the other side, Ultimate Killer King of Killers, who had returned to his body, had a look of utter disbelief on his face. That blow just now had wild godly power that was enough to destroy a true immortal's body. How could he have withdrawn it at the last second? This was far beyond Ultimate Killer King of Killers' expectations, as well as General Yi and Marshal Jiang, who had witnessed everything at the scene. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was really a ridiculously strong man. And all these years, this powerful man had actually been showing himself to people as a soul formation cultivator? What kind of forbearance and low-key spirit was this? The 10 generals should all learn from him. Ultimate Killer King of Killers, what else do you have to say? General Yi stared at Ultimate Killer King of Killers. This time, he wasn't in a hurry to make a move, because he was worried that Ultimate Killer King of Killers would use the anti-last hit spell again. But he also didn't have to worry about Ultimate Killer King of Killers escaping. For one thing, a barrier had already been set up in the venue. For another, Ultimate Killer King of Killers had deliberately allowed General Yi to severely injure him in order to use the anti-last hit spell. Now that Ultimate Killer King of Killers had returned to his heavily injured body, it was almost impossible for him to escape in this situation. Overall, the incident had come to a successful conclusion. While the 10 generals were discussing how to deal with Ultimate Killer King of Killers, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sent Wang Ling a message of thanks. Brother Ling. Thank you so much. Thank you for your help. But Wang Ling didn't reply. Because at that moment, Wang Ling was called out by Teacher Pan in class. During Teacher Pan's Tao Talisman's lesson, Wang Ling had spent several minutes guiding his soul into grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body, which had caused his original body to look a little sluggish. When Teacher Pan called him out to answer a question, Wang Ling hadn't been able to stand up in time to reply. When Wang Ling came back to his senses, Teacher Pan had already called him out 3 times. Now, it was the 4th time. Student Wang Ling, you're absent-minded in class. It's almost time for the final exams. It looks like I need to contact your parents. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.